and for some time. But the reality is, as an institution, we were not walking the talk. One thing to sign something, but then the thing what I mentioned around the economy part of it is the how part of it. It's only 2 years back that we actually went public in saying no new coal. We will not finance coal-fired plants anymore. And as you can appreciate, we got a lot of pushback. First from the clients, that you are the largest bank in the country, you have the largest balance sheet. What will we do in terms of the coal financing going forward? And I said, we are not running away from the energy portfolio. 25 to 26% of our portfolio is in energy. All we are going to do is to reallocate it to solar, wind, hydro, and that's where you should be now focused on as well. And on a lighter note, I got pushback from my own team as well, the investment banking team, because they had and they had revenue implications for that. But in any case, that's what we. And Faraz Saab idhar baithe hain from PwC. I mean, we had that discussion right around the environmental agenda and what we are doing. And this is very much as part of our net zero journey for HBL. And we have a marker in the ground. And that marker is 2030. And a lot of people come and tell me that it's a very, very ambitious goal. And, but from my perspective, you have to start from somewhere, right? So we can get into, focus 1, focus 2, and then we see, can we get into the tertiary part of it? But we have to start from somewhere. So we're very committed to net zero. And that's part of that. We are solarizing our branches. More than 250 branches have now been solarized. Our building, the HBL Tower, our head office, is a LEED certified building. Our new head office in Gilgit for HBL Microfinance Bank is EDGE certified building. And we are working very closely with the WWF to designate some of our branches as green offices. The second thing that we have very recently started our journey on is to be accredited with the Global Climate Fund. So we are very grateful to Senator Sherry Rahman and the ministry for at least getting us through all the discussions here in Pakistan so that we can go ahead and apply to be accredited. And I think that will allow us to do and play the financing part in a much more effective way once we are done with that. The third thing which we worked during 2022 was green taxonomy. And while the Deputy Governor has left, I mean, normally it's the central bank which takes the lead in establishing the principles around green taxonomy, because it's about what gets treated, whether it's capital markets, whether it's lending, and how do we measure that. But we have been working with Dr. Ma Jun out of Tsinghua University in China. Dr. Ma Jun was the chairman of the policy committee of PBOC, and he is the principal architect which brought China from zero to hero, right, in terms of green bonds. Right now, roughly 40% of the green bonds in the world are being issued by China, and we are very grateful to him for the support that we received in terms of coming up with the green taxonomy framework for HBL. We are equally grateful to IFC and BII for their ongoing support and the guidance that we are receiving with respect to our net zero journey. We did issue our first sustainability report last year. We are going to bring in the second report this year. And now onwards, we are really focusing on measurement. And as accountants and ACCA graduates, you can imagine things only become real when they get measured, right? And that's where and how we plan to hold ourselves accountable. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure being here. I just gave you a little bit snippet of our own journey on the ESG agenda. So I wish you all the best for the rest of the conference. And again, grateful for the invite this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aurangzeb. For surely we need to walk the talk. Moving forward, to moderate the panel discussion, I would now like to invite... Sure. All right. Okay. I would like to call Mr. Aurangzeb on the stage for receiving the mementos. For receiving the mementos, we would like to call ACCA's Global President, Joseph Ovlabi, Head of ACCA Pakistan, Mr. Asad, to present mementos to Mr. Aurangzeb, President and CEO of Habib Bank Limited. I would also like to call Mr. Temur, Head of Business Development South, ACCA. Please, a round of applause. Thank you so much. We will now move on with our panel. To moderate the panel discussion, I would like to invite Ms. Sadia Dada, Chief Marketing and Communication Officer, K Electric. She's a business transformation professional with 18 years of experience in diverse range of sectors, including media, energy, FMCG, F&B, and telecom. She also manages the customer service and ESG functions at K Electric and is passionate about driving inclusion, innovation, sustainability in the workplace. In the panelist, we have with us Mr. Ikan Ali Khan, General Manager, Strategy, Business Development and Innovation at Lucky Core Industries Limited, formerly known as ICI Pakistan. Mr. Ikan has 25 years of leadership experience in corporate strategy, business development, marketing, sales, and finance. Prior to joining, he has led various senior management positions at Engro Corporation, including Business Director, Consumer Staples, Head of Strategy, Business Development and Finance, and Business Head Commodities. Then we have with us Ms. Mehvesh Veliani. She's the Chief Operating Officer at Al Karam Studios. Please, ma'am, can we have you on the stage? She has over 2 decades of financial sector experience with a focus on infrastructure, project finance, debt capital market. She's honored to be listed as the top 20 influential Pakistani woman on LinkedIn. Then we have Mr. Mohammad Shehzad, who's currently serving as the Finance Director, ESG Ambition Lead for Nutrition, Home Care and Customer Development at Unilever Pakistan. Please welcome him on stage. He has a wealth of experience while being with the business for the last 15 years, serving across senior finance and category management roles. Next, we have with us Mr. Nadeem Rana. He's a partner and head of risk and management consulting. Please, sir, can we have you on the stage? At KPMG Tasir Hadi and Company, which is a member firm of the Global Accounting and Professional Services. He has more than 25 years experience in assurance and advisory services. Then we have with us Ms. Sarwat Ehsan. She's the Executive Director of CFA, Chartered Financial Analyst Society Pakistan, a non-profit professional association of investment professionals in Pakistan. Please, a round of applause for her. It's always good to see females in the room. She brings with her 20 years of blended experience in corporate banking, consulting, teaching, training, and project management. Lastly, we have with us Ms. Nazish Sheikha. She's currently serving as the head research at the Center of Excellence in Responsible Business at the Pakistan Business Council. A round of applause for her. Her key responsibilities include providing research-based support to CRB's strategic goals, gender equality, environmental stewardship, transforming business culture and ethical practices, with creating livelihoods and sustainable systems. Thank you so much. Now over to you, the moderator, please. Thank you.
So, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much. My heartiest congratulations to ACCA for this beautiful conversation and for constituting a panel which warms my heart for sure. Some very interesting designations here, which I will talk about shortly. A lot of ground has already been set by Asad in his inaugural address, by Shaista and Seema Kamil Sahiba. I'm going to take 2 notes from what Aurangzeb talked about. If you don't measure it, it's not really real. And I'm going to go to Nazish, who heads the Center of Excellence in Responsible Business, short for CERB, on sort of setting the elephant out from the room. Now, you spoke to me about the fact that while ESG is a very hot topic in the country, reporting is still not up to the mark. So of the companies listed in the stock exchange, hardly 10 to 15% put out a sustainability report. And therein lies the struggle with the fact that there are businesses who still feel that there is an inherent conflict between ESG and profitability. So I want you to talk a little bit about those numbers, if you see any uptake in them, and how can businesses in Pakistan balance profitability with social and environmental responsibilities?
Can you hear me? All right. Okay. Thank you all to the ACCA for inviting me to this panel. As Sadia said, I'm representing the Center of Excellence in Responsible Business here, which is basically an outreach initiative of the Pakistan Business Council. So the Pakistan Business Council, as you all know and are familiar with, is made up of 100 top companies in Pakistan. And what we do is we give advice or we advocate for policies which will lead to the improvement of the economy of Pakistan as a whole. So in this respect, the center was set up in 2016 to help in this direction, to look at and to address a lot of this talk that has been talked about today, the ESG part of the overall, how it will support the economy of Pakistan. And what we do is we identify, obviously, the numbers as has been highlighted by Ms. Seema Kamil and Mr. Mohammed Aurangzeb, that data needs to be quality and it needs to be managed. Once we have the data, it's only then that we can manage. So when we're looking at the uptake of ESG, what we've seen over the 5 or 6 years in our surveys that we're doing, that obviously the uptake is slow. And one of the reasons is possibly because of the understanding of ESG. I think finally we're at the stage that a lot of people in this room are now considering ESG to be part of the business decisions about rethinking business models, as been discussed. But previously, when we talked about ESG and sustainability, the issue that came out was a lot of companies still associated this with CSR and, donating to schools and, with basically one aspect of ESG, which is helping communities in which you work in. But now I think we are at the right stage to talk about this in terms of risk. So what sort of risks do you see ESG bringing in or not considering ESG will bring in for your organization? So the environmental risk, the social risks, all of these have been discussed. So up till now, the uptake of perhaps disclosure has been slow in Pakistan. There was a recent research in 2020, and only 50 out of 540 listed companies in Pakistan were actually publishing sustainability reports. But I do feel that this number will grow higher. And, with the uptake at the government level as well, the State Bank of Pakistan has just released their ESRM and that will also push companies to disclose more as well. So I think that will bring the change in the direction.
Thank you, Nazish. I share your optimism on the uptake in the reports, and I know the work that ACCA is doing will definitely contribute to it. I'm going to go to Mehwish next to build on the theme. And I know Al-Karam Studio has been doing some phenomenal work, and you've been quite vocal about how this has added to the bottom line and the brand reputation. So if you could talk a little bit about how Al-Karam is tackling ESG, embedding it into its business and brand DNA, and particularly not only with diversity and inclusion, but also from an enterprise risk management perspective. So over to you, Mevish.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you, ACCA, and thank you, Sadia. Just a little bit of a background. So, it's been a very interesting journey. I'm exactly 7 months old as far as corporate sector is concerned. Bulk of my career has been with the financial sector, particularly investment banking, so to speak, and a very interesting transition that I've seen over the course of my career is the fact that ESG, when I started off, featured nowhere close in our analysis of projects. And most of the work that I did was around project financing, putting up new projects. And interestingly, the same terminology or the three terms became very, very familiar or very, very relevant when a multilateral would feature into the financing mix. And suddenly the organization would be looked at with a very different lens. And that's where we kept it. But over the course as the years passed by, I have seen, and as Seema Kamil Sahiba also pointed out today, that there has been now increasing emphasis, even from the regulator, for the local financing landscape also to take into account ESG. Now, coming into Al Karam Studio, fast forward to where I am today, I look at this particular framework, ESG, Sadia. It's so relevant to everything that we do today. Right now, our footprint, so to speak, is it touches upon the social aspect, the governance aspect, as well as the environmental aspect. The reason I use environment in the end is because we are such a people-driven company. We have such a huge labor force, we have a stitching unit, and we have a huge sales force also. So while they're not exactly, they cannot be put in that category of labors, but they are a huge component of our company. And then there is a head office component. And so I would start with as in how these practices on a daily basis, and if they're not done the right way, and I'm not saying in any way, any stretch of the imagination that we're to the way these practices should be followed. But prior to coming here, I was also reading up on how international brands have been doing, and they've gotten it wrong many, many times. So our customer, I would say that today's customer, which is primarily now and increasingly focused on a millennial, or as they millennials, Gen Z and millennials, who are very and really touch your brand or your product if you have any malpractices or if the word gets out. And it's not very, in this day of social media, it's not very hard to get that word out if your malpractices are prevalent within the company. So therein starts the the slap on your wrist, that you have to from the very beginning be very conscious of your labor practices. So the bare minimum labor practices, whether it's safety concerns, grievance concerns, compensation concerns, those are practices that as a company, as a brand, we focus on and we support. The second bit that I wanted to highlight is, again, yes, you said other than diversity and inclusion, but I would definitely like to touch upon it because we are a brand that serves mostly women. And it's not to be taken lightly. A brand whose main user is a woman has to have the touch of female workforce. So how do we look like in terms of our female inclusion stats? We have about 30% workforce in our stitching unit as well as at our head office. And I'm proud to report that 3 out of my 12 DRs are also females, including my head of design, my head of marketing, and my head of e-commerce. So all 3 are females. And we have about 20% of our sales force represented through females. So that's not good enough. Again, I agree, because our main customer is a female customer, and there is very conscious efforts to increase that percentage. Similarly, on the governance side, our board also has a female representative, and mind you, retail sector still is not as is quite rudimentary when it comes to board practices and governance. And I'm very proud to state that we have an advisory board and we have independent director representation, and we also have a female director representation. And diversity, Sadia, when it comes to diversity, not just in form of gender, but also in form of religious orientation, and also differently abled people. And we've done a lot of collaboration with various associations, and there was a very good program with now PDP wherein we took on interns and then we hired some of them, and we have people working in design, creative, who are differently abled, who are hearing impaired, but who are doing the excellent work with us.
Thank you, Mevish. All extremely important themes, particularly around transparency and diversity and inclusion, is definitely something which is now a must-have. So I'm very happy to hear what you're doing at Al Karam. I'm quickly now move over to Ikan and then Shahzad. A little bit on your title. So it says, so you look at business development, but you're also the gender manager. So automatically, ये question भी आपकी तरफ आएगा. But do tell me a little bit about stakeholder perspectives. It's very important to keep employees engaged as well. And I know this is something that Lucky is envisioning. And also from a perspective of business, how have you seen ESG practices being embedded into your value chain and helped you deliver on your bottom line?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank ACCA for organizing this wonderful conference. And it's a pleasure to be here and listen to all the esteemed guests speaking. As far as Lucky Core Industries is concerned, ESG is something which is very close to our heart. It's embedded in our core values. So when you talk of ESG, the environment part, the social part, and the governance part, two of our core values align very, very closely with those. One is ethics and responsibility, and the second one is health, safety, environment, and sustainability. And both of these, we believe, are our essential licenses to operate. And, there was a conversation earlier on happening, one of the other panelists mentioning, I'll first talk about governance and reporting as far as sustainability is concerned, that a very few organizations in the country still do it. And, what cannot be measured doesn't really have kind of an impact. So I'm very happy to share here that, we've been one of the very early organizations in the country who voluntarily adopted sustainability reporting. We have a sustainability report going on for a while. And not only the reporting is happening, but it's aligned with the United Nations Sustainability Development Guidelines. And, again, doing these things, does it really help? Because, again, this other question that, people just do it when there is a financing need or multilateral coming along. I'm telling you, it does have a big impact. Based on my personal experience working in various organizations and working here as well. We went through a brand name change recently. As you would all know, we have been, our name has been ICI, which is Imperial Chemical Industries, one of very known household corporate names in the country. And this recent transition to Lucky Core Industries, our presence in those areas and the corporate reputation it has helped us develop has really, really smoothed the whole transition. And it's very easy, So it does have an impact. So on the governance part, we take it very, very strongly. It's not just reporting. There is a whole philosophy and strong mechanisms in place to ensure that those things are happening, starting from the board to the senior leadership team, down below to the ground level. Moving on to the environment and the social part of it. Well, the way we look at it is, there are three essential focus areas as far as our approach is concerned. So we based in nature, it's nature-based solutions, it's and science-based solutions that we want to adopt. We want to focus on decarbonization because, as you know, we are a large manufacturing concern having a presence in multiple areas. And to be very honest, we do face those challenges on a day-to-day basis. And if I say that, you don't face that question that, okay, if you do this, the financial impact in the short term, Yes, those questions also come in. And how does one balance, those things? Those are essential questions which we face on a day-to-day basis. So decarbonization is one of the important things. And then also, we want to do it in a collaborative and engaging manner, not just leveraging on our own teams, but also working with the other teams. Some of the key things that we have been doing in terms of incorporating this in our supply chain, I'll give you some examples. So, first of all, we have this whole program called Catalyst, which we have launched, and it's our harbinger for change. And our focus and our pledge is, because we do know we have carbon CO2 emissions. So our pledge is that we want to neutralize 80,000 tons of those CO2 emissions by 2030, which is close to 10% of our total CO2 emissions. Then, aside from those CO2 emissions, we've been working, there is a big thing. We are sitting here even in, in Pakistan, we are very, very used to plastic bottles. Now, plastic bottles, well, yes, they are ease of convenience, no question about it, makes life easier for all of us. But we know that it has a huge environment impact. So what we've been doing is, one of the businesses in which we operate is polyester staple fiber, which is part of the whole textile value chain. So we have launched this program where we're doing recycled, we collect these plastic bottles from households. And what we do is that, we reprocess them, we buy them, we're working with some NGOs on this front. We buy them back on a competitive rate, and we produce polyester staple fiber based on that recycled material, which is 100% clean. And we call it Terylene clean, okay? And the other impact that it has is that aside from the environment part, it has a social impact also. Because what happens is that, those NGOs, when they buy, they're running school programs, using that money. So it has both a social as well as an environmental impact. Aside from that, in some of the areas where we operate, there is a challenge of brackish water. Like, for example, our facility in soda ash, which is in Kevada, is this huge problem, same thor jise hum kehte hain. So, we've been working in programs where we can recycle 200 million gallons plus of that water, to process and make it usable in our process. So again, that's recycling, those kinds of things. In terms of deforestation that is happening, we also have a pledge to plant more than 200,000 trees, and we are in the process of doing so, collaborating with different parts, different organizations in the country. So I think the ESG program can have a tremendous impact if one does it properly. And, yes, you need to engage your teams, and that is what we try to do.
That's absolutely beautiful, really embedding ESG not only into your management principles, but also into your product life cycle. So I look forward to having my hands on Triceline Clean, is that it?
Terylene clean.
Terylene Clean. So round of applause for Ikan and Lucky Ko. Moving on to Shehzad. Unilever is one of the pioneers when it comes to embedding sustainability, and fairly ahead of the curve, if I may say, particularly from the Global Advantage, where started off on this journey very early on. I want to hear from you, first of all, about the ESG ambition lead. I think it's an apt title to have. And it's a beautiful summation of how this journey needs to be done. You need to craft ambitions, but also talk a little bit about the supply chain work that you've done, and also the impact on brands. I mean, considering the beautiful campaigns that we see year on year from Unilever on sustainability. So the brand impact, and of course the initiatives that Unilever has been taking, and the ambition that you are in the process of crafting.
So thank you, Sadia, and special thanks to ACCA, because had it not been for this invite, this title would not have come by. So there's a very interesting story behind it. Not long back, when we were crafting the finance vision for the organization, I represent finance here. One of the things that we picked up was the work around ESG. ESG by then had become a mainstay in every conversation that you would have in terms of any organization's strategic thrusts. And I picked it up as a passion project, really. It featured nowhere in my JD or my job responsibilities. But since then, I've been trying my best to galvanize the organization around this centerpiece of a trust. Now, what made it interesting, and which is where I start the response to the other questions, is the fact that Unilever globally is a giant which is well known for its sustainability thrust. And the journey goes back to the Victorian era when the organization, Unilever it was called back then, Lever Brothers we'd go by for now, launched this first product with the hope of fighting the cholera epidemic, the scourge of cholera back in the Victorian day England. In many ways, the same philosophy is what we've living plan. And, in the simplest possible terms, but the impact that he wanted to create with that was equally big. So we wanted to double the size of our business while halving the environmental footprint and increasing a social positive impact. Anyways, and it sent was a graduation in the sense that, as you asked, Sadia, every bit of work that we do, either in our brands or through our brands or our operations, now has ESG, sustainability as a purpose embedded in it. And this is what the articulation of our purpose is. As an organization, making sustainability commonplace through our future fit, purpose-led model, which will drive financial returns in the top three, peer group of our business. Again, as bold as it can get, but what sort of stands it apart from our previous articulation was the fact that it is in our strategy. You can't simply do it as a sideshow anymore. And this is where the journey begins. So before I come on to the brands, I would like to call out a couple of thrusts behind the Compass organization, one of which is behind improving the health of the planet, and which is where the actions around clean energy, clean materials and all come in. And of course, zero deforestation, 100% sustainable soil, and so on and so forth. But what is the most important bit of that plan, and a very ambitious one at that, is our climate action plan, which envisages zero emissions, net zero for the organization across scope 1, 2, and 3 by 2039, 11 years ahead of global timelines, of which we want to be able to do scope 1 and 2 by 2030. And of course, all the markets are then participating in it, because it would just not happen otherwise. So in Pakistan, if I bring it home a bit, I'm happy to report that 80% of our energy requirements today, our own energy requirements, are renewable energy sourced. And the efforts behind it are led by our biomass boiler installations, our solar efforts, and our offsets that we buy. On clean materials, Ikan spoke of plastic, and that is a topic very close to my heart, because on plastics, the first step of the journey is to acknowledge responsibility, which we do as a manufacturer. And what we have now committed ourselves to is to sort of cut down or improve the usage of virgin plastic in our products by a half. And 100,000 tons of which globally will come from absolute reduction. In Pakistan, we've reached 50% neutrality already. And of course, the second effort or the thrust behind this to move to recyclable plastic, 100%, And on that, we are 60% there in Pakistan already. In R/K, which is our legacy site, our biggest site, our home and beauty and personal care. Sorry, I keep going back to the previous definitions. Beauty and personal care site, which is the biggest in the Unilever Pakistan network, and Rahim Yar Khan. We now are in alliance with UNDP to sort of convert it into a plastic-free city. The groundwork is laid, the efforts are underway, and there's about 2,000 tons of plastic that we put in there that we will now recover, rework, recycle, and put it back into use. We are working with, we are actually one of the founder members of the Collect and Recycle Alliance on plastics, whereby we have achieved about 50% neutrality, like I mentioned, a bit of mechanics in there. 10,000 tons odd is what we produce, 50,000 tons is what we've collected, reprocessed, and put into use. And much the same way as Ekan mentioned around his efforts, something similar that we're doing here. And in fact, if any of you are the users of the Sunsilk Blackshine bottle, you'd see a logo there where it says that it is coming from recycled used plastics. That is on the environment part and the efforts that we are deploying by way of our operations. On the brands front, again, the important bit to note here is that each brand today in Unilever stands for a purpose. So for example, if you think of Knorr is big on regenerative agriculture globally and works with smallholder farmers in terms of rolling out sustainable agriculture practices. Dove is about, it stands all for inclusive beauty. The GAL Foundation behind the FAL Foundation, as it was previously known, works on the education for young women. Lifebuoy itself stands for improving health and hygiene. And this year in Pakistan, we've touched positively over 1 million people with our message on improving hygiene practices. And of course, there's a foundation program there, through scholarship program towards encouraging the education of the girl child in Pakistan. So a lot of work that goes in there. And what keeps us on toes is the fact that every brand, when it crafts its JTBD, the marketing people would know what I'm referring to here, has to have a brand say and a brand do action both married together. You can't simply have a brand which says something that it stands for and not do anything about it. So if there is a brand say and not a brand do, that campaign does not go through. It stops. You need to be seen walking the talk, because the consumer today is woke, as Mehwish mentioned, right? They want to see for themselves the impact that the product that they are patronizing creates in the marketplace for the environment. And that is how the journey is rolling out. If you allow me one more aspect that I would like to share, in terms of supply chain efforts that we're doing, there are many, but the one that is very close to our hearts, and I say our hearts as Unilever, because this is something that under the Unilever for Pakistan banner, we are set out to do, and that is to improve our collective organizational and then, of course, corporate psyche into thinking fair living wage and not minimum wage. Because we feel that people, each and every individual has a right to a dignified livelihood, and that just cannot happen if you pay the minimum wage. And on that journey, we've taken the first few steps last year under the Unilever's Global Compact on Fair Living Wage and Income. It is a 5-year journey. We've come almost a quarter of the way there. This year will be another milestone where we hope to achieve 50% in terms of providing fair living wage to 21,000 people who are directly or indirectly employed with us. And once we are able to do that in our own ecosystem, we want to then send the same message out and work with like-minded corporates to create this movement within the industry. So those are a few builds there, Sadia.
So thank you, Shahzad, and really wonderful to hear about all the initiatives. And I really like the key takeaway is that brands need to have a purpose and they need to walk the talk. So we've heard from businesses who are ahead of the curve. And one of the things that Ekan mentioned was it's important to do them before somebody mandates it on us. And I know for a fact FRS is working on regulations that will make certain disclosures mandatory. When I was coming in today, I had a brief chat with Joseph, and he mentioned that it is important to have an ambition. And once you have that, it makes it much easier to track that progress. So, all the numbers that our dear friend was quoting is because he's been doing justice to his recently awarded title, and I hope you get to keep it. Is once you have put those ambitions in, then you can start talking about the progress you have made. Now, we've heard the business case, and we've heard some fantastic things from business leaders who are ahead of the curve. The most vital thing is, of course, having a support system. And this is where we have two very important panelists who have a multitude of resources available to help companies craft their ESG ambition. I know for a fact that K Electric is already benefiting from SERB, who's been engaged with us for the past 1 year in crafting our ESG ambition. But the scale is quite large, and we probably need a village to educate the Pakistani industry on how to build their ESG journeys. So with that, I'm going to go to Mr. Nadeem. If you could talk a little bit about KPMG's role, how you are helping companies in measuring, reporting, and even building their ESG journeys, and what are some of the key issues that you think your clients face when they are coming to you for advice?
Thank you, Satya. I hope you guys can hear me. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And thank you, ACCA, for giving us this opportunity where we have been participating with our clients, talking to the people who really now understand. So the first thing that we see encouraging here is that there's no dispute, there's no difference in the decision that this is an imperative, not a choice. And this is how the KPMG has devised globally their impact plan. We are known as consultants, we are known as auditors, and to tell you, our impact plan is worth as big as $1.5 billion over the 5 years across all the practices that we have, and we are contributing to walk the talk as we are hearing from the participants. Now, when it comes to the ESG and the integration, we see at 3 levels. And there is an integration between ES and G as well. So when we talk about environment, what comes to our mind when sitting in Pakistan? Floods, droughts, temperature, deforestation, carbon, decarbonization, packaging, social issues, diversity, inclusion. But all these things relate to our people. So we see ESG from the lens of the impacts. And we come to the social side, the agenda for any government or population is to ensure that we can feed our people, the food security. Then we connect this to the water, right? So environment, social, all interconnected. And when it comes to the third part of it, governance, you see in economy, managing the health care of such population where they don't have their own resources to reach out to the medical care, or they can earn their living, generating enough employment for the young population that we have, creating opportunities. This all creates such a big governance issues. So climate change, when we look into the impacts, it moves on to the social side of it. When we see the people issues, it goes back to the governance. And apparently, as a country, unfortunately, it appears that we have become more and more dependent on the global participants or the fund providers. So are we sustaining our plans? Are we going or setting the right direction? Here comes when I say that it has to integrate at 3 levels. At people level, because they can see their own impacts, so they need a behavioral cognizance around this whole subject. Then we see the corporates. They are the businesses who generate employment, who create value. So they need to be supported by the government policy. Rather than taxing them or rather than creating or providing them the right skills they need, They face that our cost of doing business is not competitive with the market. So it's all integrated. And how I see confusion is that, or a resolution to this confusion being optimistic, is that our government policy, our corporate plans, and our people behaviors should integrate into some national agenda. And this is where the change will start happening. And if and when we do it, then we will see that the corporates will be playing their role as devising their overall ESG plan, disclosing their progress, and getting it assured as we see the whole progress. So in my view, the issue is integration at all levels and understanding that fundamental integration between E, S, and G. So this is how we see it at this point in time.
Some very, very thought-provoking questions, Nadeem Saab. I'm now going to go over to Sarvat. Sarvat, the investment landscape is changing. And I was reading a Bloomberg intelligence report, and it said that ESG assets are expected to grow by $50 trillion globally by 2025. And that's a huge, huge opportunity right there. So I want to ask you, how do investor preferences and demand for ESG considerations vary across different regions? And of course, a perspective on how do you see it in Pakistan? I'd also like to understand what resources or support does CFA Society Pakistan offer to businesses to help unlock these opportunities?
Bismillah. Thank you, Sadia, for your question. I'd like to first congratulate ACCA for managing a panel which has men in minority. And secondly, I also want to step back and comment on the title, which is Shaping the Future, and what Mr. Orangdev said about us being agents of change and we as professionals, what we can do. And I'd like to share an article I recently read in which a researcher mentioned that Valentine's Day is the carbon fest, producing 500,000 tons of carbon emissions, which is equivalent to 50,000 Britain's footprint a year. So the kind of upskilling that perhaps we as professionals need to do in those areas are the resources which they're very valuable with CFA Institute, which operates in 160 societies. And by virtue of its presence in so many societies, we are able to gather a lot of intelligence in those regions, a lot of research available for that, for us being on. Coming to your first part of the question, in terms of skill set, there's also a research which tells us that 1 million profiles on LinkedIn were studied. And the employers who were demanding ESG skills and the profiles which stated these skills as those who have ESG, there was a gap of 6%. And of course, there was a small sample that was studied. I'm sure the need for us upgrading us skill set is extremely important, and it stays. As far as investment preferences are concerned, of course, as other panelists have also mentioned, Mahesh, also, that it is largely driven by the funds that are following. However, if I were to look at the research globally, I mean, there's some jurisdictions, of course, Europe and UK, which are more into regulation, are driving ESG mandate. Over here, it's more risk management. And within the region, we see those countries which have more flow of funds developing faster on those fronts. Globally, governance takes precedence over environmental and social factors. However, when it comes to sovereign issues, green bond and environmental issues have taken a greater focus. You can see in Pakistan also, after the floods and the 16 billion solar, the government has also refocused. And however, we are ready. Within Pakistan, of course, we are very early in that curve in terms of our contribution to ESG analysis. I mean, there is conversation, it's not really trickled down to the model or evaluations. So having said that, CF Institute has said, CF Societies, we have a lot of resources in terms of we have ESG certification in investing, which is at an individual level, one can upskill themselves. CF Institute has also published global standards in investment management, for which we are gradually introducing in Pakistan, and we have started engaging with the asset management companies to understand and bring their disclosures to par for all those who are thinking of launching ESG-related funds. So, yeah, thank you.
So I hope the audience and participants have taken notes of the resources available by the CFA Society. So Nazish, I'm going to come back to you. So Nadeem Saab made a very important mention of the need for the government to also play a role in making sure that businesses adopt this. Now, what do you envision? I mean, is it a policy or an incentivization model that should be taken from your perspective?
So it has to be a bit of both. Incentivization, when the PBC publishes their annual budget recommendations, we do publish some incentives related to E&S specifically, which can push organizations towards invest in these aspects. This could be, investing in water purification plants or things like that, which would end up giving companies a rebate, investing in recycling systems. And then, on the other hand, when we're looking at increasing the gender participation in the workforce, we have in the past also published in our policy document that we make, is that a rebate be given to working women, or suggesting a rebate given to working women who have families to take care of at home, because while they're working, obviously a large chunk of their salaries go to childcare or parental care. So if that sort of leeway can be given, it would encourage more women in the workforce. So that's at the government level. These are our encouragements. Other than that, as ESG is coming on board and we are getting the IFRS guidelines will be applicable in 2024, as early as 2024, we will need some sort of policy coming out. I know the SSCP has started developing things on this ESG task force, but we do see that the need will be more urgent than it's currently being pushed at. So I do see, hopefully in the next year or so, there will be a lot of policy-related guidance coming for companies, because at the end of the day, there is a need for guidance on how to move towards, ESG. We do have 3 excellent companies which are ahead of the curve, and they've talked about, where they're reducing the impact. But when we're interacting with companies, what we see is a lot of companies struggling with how do we get to that impact? What are the processes that need to be in place? How do we engage with our stakeholders? How do we ensure that we're, in the right direction? And again, at the end of, how do we measure and how do we set targets? So these are all of the questions that do come up. I feel that guidance will be a step direction to encourage companies on this trajectory, and ensure that whatever sustainability reports or ESG reports that are coming out will be comparable as well. So that's sort of my and also the PBC's viewpoint on it as well.
Thank you, Nazish. We have full faith in PBCU and SR for driving this conversation at the government level, as they have been doing many conversations continuously. I'm going to come back to Nadeem, because I feel like you wanted to add to this point 1, and if you could also give us your views on how you see the ESG landscape evolve over the next 5 to 10 years?
Fundamentally, I think two things I see, and I would like to quote the journeys which the other countries have taken, for example, the Hong Kong and South Korea. So you mentioned 5 to 10 years. It took them exactly 10 years to have a common sustainability reporting standard where the regulators, investors, and all other stakeholders were on board, and it was a comparable set of information like the financial statements we have. So I see in my country this thing happening something between 5 to 7 years, and KPMG is already working with the regulators as well as with our clients in primarily educating them, because consensus is required on what is practical to report, what is now, what is in the short run and medium to long run. This is one thing. Second, I see the ratings, like we have credit rating for the companies, we will have ESG ratings. And those ESG ratings will determine that how easy it is for the corporates to get access to capital, how easy or how well they are viewed by the employees when they choose their employers, and how they are participating in the society. And as it is said that there are incentives upcoming. So it's all that is happening. But my advice to my clients is that just embark on that journey. It's not short term. It has to stay and just be part of it. And after some time, it will be honestly a DIY. The most of the things, the way we do it, for example, the approach or the method that we follow or we advise to our clients, honestly, it's so simple and it's so already pervasive in your practices that it should feel like a DIY. For example, setting the tone. Your boards are already geared up to talk about these agenda because the investors and the customers are putting in the pressure. All our export related, especially goods, are being challenged honestly by the customer that please demonstrate your ESG priorities and the strategies. Similarly, the investors will now choose those entities where they see that they have sustainable business. So we need to talk to our stakeholders, decide what is value for us in terms of impact generated by the ESG agenda, prioritize them, check their materiality, right? Set up a governance, involve your board, and have everyone across your organization talk about it. We deploy strategies like this. It is part of our strategic planning and decision making, right? So you do planning, keeping ESG in your mind. You do risk management, embedding ESG into it. And then there comes the matrices and the measurements where we seek guidance from the regulators so that the comparable informations are generated. And the last part would be the assurance area, where you add confidence to that, where entities like ACCA, ICAP, or standard setting boards, they already are working with the stock exchange. And soon we will have our own ESG guidelines. Maybe in the start, it is comply and explain approach, but as the journey matures, there will be enforcements. And that will all happen in 5 to 10 years.
So what a beautiful message. It sounds complicated, but it really isn't. It's quite simple, and it's going to happen. So it's best that you start your journey sooner than later. So I'm going to hop on to your neighbor, Shehzad. And if you could also share what you think, this landscape is evolving and what it would look like for your company.
Yeah, so if I could just beg to differ slightly, while I'm completely on board with the message there, mostly DIY, but it takes a bit of an effort to start anything off. Yes, just like any new change, it takes effort. The organization needs to be overcome. And let me start with a provocation. And with due respect to Mr. Joseph, let me allow me to say this in Urdu. इस दौर में जब खाने पीने के लाले लगे हुए हैं ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को, क्या ESG करना भी चाहिए कि नहीं? So, Mr. Joseph, what I'm trying to say here is this the right time for Pakistan to be picking up ESG as a mandate to drive, or the corporate Pakistan to? Because there's enough and more going around us, which will consume our energies to the fullest. And that's the provocation I want to leave you with. And I'll attempt my own answer to that. There will never be a right time. We've always been in one crisis or the other. Just because Pakistan is in a recession, will the climate change stop? I don't think so. It'll only aggravate. And if we go by history, in any kind of a progressive movement, any interjection which inhibits the progress inevitably leads to regression. Things don't stop there. What I'm trying to say is that a lot of good work has been started by a lot of good corporates. Let us not lose the momentum now in the face of the adversity that we see around us. It'll only get worse if we don't act today. Yes, acting today may be painful, may be costly, but the cost of inaction certainly is much higher. That's my only message. And in terms of how I see the landscape evolving, I'm pretty much on board with how Rana Nadeem Saab has laid it out. But I exhort two things that we need to do as corporate Pakistan. One, a lot of corporates, including my own organization, which is very big on sustainability, but at a local level, it is very much a functional thrust. When I set out to do what I set out to do, I had a bit of a difficulty coordinating all the pieces together to say, okay, listen, this needs to come together as one in the organization's decision-making psyche. It can't be a set of KPIs being reported from here or there. Albeit all the good work that we do, not taking anything away from that, it needs to come front and center. A lot of organizations will need help with that. And a lot of front runners in this space can work jointly and collaboratively, because this is not a competitive game. This is not a zero-sum effort. It has to be a win-win. So collaboration is the name of the game. And in that spirit, the recent ESG sprint that we did with PBC, OICCI, etc., is something that was very well received. We can do more of such efforts jointly. I take heart from the message that Mr. Joseph gave in terms of equipping the workforce academia today with the skills that will be needed, because the second bit that we'll need, it takes a different kind of a skill. It is not much the same as us auditing something or working out a financial analysis on a project or something of that sort. It requires a very different skill. It will not demand the same level of accuracy, but it will certainly demand some level of measurement to be able to drive action forward. So those are my few bits on this, Sadia.
Thank you, Shahzad. What would be a conversation without a little bit of a provocation? So I feel very happy. If we all thought, acted, and felt the same way, this world would be kind of dull. So dissent is always welcome. I am going to go over to Mehvish and then Ikan to quickly share. We're running out of time. So quickly share where you feel the landscape is evolving, and then hop on to that side of the cuff. So over to you, Mehvish.
So, Sadia, I'm just going to add to the conversation that has already happened. Look, to my right and left are two gentlemen who come from organizations who are actually setting the benchmark for whatever could have been done in ESG, given the limited ecosystem that we have in place, right? Now let's just take a step back and see what I heard you mention was that there's plenty of liquidity out there waiting for candidates to support and fund, right? That could be compliant with ESG. Now, my previous assignment happened to be with the multilateral credit support agency. And if I could share in a secret here, there is so much liquidity lying unutilized, simply because they just don't have the candidates. So an ICI or Lucky Core or a Unilever would not be their candidate. Yes, however, an Alkaram studio would definitely stand a good chance, or would be that kind of a candidate that these funds would be dying to support. I can tell you, I can let you in on the secret, they would be dying to support. And just a bit of a stat here. So retail industry, what do you think, how much would it be contributing to the GDP? It's your third largest contributor, around 18 to 20% contribution to Pakistan's GDP. Retail fashion, I would say thoda sa, a little more modest, about 10% of retail, but yet a very important number. So herein lies my little bit, my 2 cents here, that for those global funds who are looking for impact investment, who are looking for ESG candidates, you will not find ready-made candidates, but aiming to find those candidates who are willing to get into that ESG framework and start preparing themselves for it. And something that IFC, ADB does all the time, or my previous employer would do, we would pick candidates, we would go guarantee them, and then we would try and bring those changes, and then we would measure those KPIs that, after our investment, the impact that happened on all 3 standards of ESG, where did that company stand in a few years? So that's where I see in the next 5 to 10 years, if you see the landscape where I'm operating, or the companies like, the ones that I represent, I feel these are very good candidates, not only in terms of making them ESG compliant, but also, finding the right investor and also improving their investment future valuation multiples, so to speak. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. So I agree with the the conversation that is happening and what my panelists have shared. This whole landscape is evolving, and there's no question about it that this conversation is going to become more and more important and imperative for corporates, as we move forward, whether it's funding, whether it's growth. One thing I'd like to quickly share, what happens is that it's very easy to all of us to sit here and just talk, and we'll all go back to our organizations. And there is the day-to-day work that we do. So it's good to hear, my friend from Unilever mentioning that he took the initiative as far as ESG is concerned and how he's aligning it. But I think a fundamental part of driving this change is a mindset change and a culture change. Now, within our own ambits and spheres of influence, our own organizations, how do we do that? So I can share some example, what we have done at our organization. So innovation is one of our core values. And what we've done is, over the last few years, we've launched an innovation challenge whereby we seek ideas from, different parts of the organization. And just like an entrepreneur would behave, they come in, pitch, and, if the ideas are good, they get the right kind of support. It's called Explore Challenge. Now, the good part there is that, yes, while we do get ideas related to business growth and everything and efficiency, but we get significant chunk of ideas coming in which are related to sustainability and driving that agenda as well. So over the last 3 or 4 years, there are hundreds of ideas that, we've been able to source. And, we believe that to make big impact, at times, even incremental change and small ideas together can help bring about that change. And that is what we're trying to essentially do. So again, in terms of internal driving the change, that kind of mindset change. And then the other thing is that, again, the way we are having this conference today, I think we need to have more such dialogues at our end, in terms of, again, trying to drive such conversations, different platforms, because again, there is the environment part, the social part, and the governance part. So I'll give you an example of when we were going through COVID and we were all in our households. So, these normal conferences were not happening. So we took an initiative partnering with some of the other leading bodies of Health 360, whereby, we called in the academia, we called in the students and, general public, and where we are today and how is it that, that conversation can help improve the healthcare system ecosystem in Pakistan, because also part of that conversation. So I think those are the kind of things we need to focus on in our own spheres of influence. And if we can do that, together the country will make progress. Yes, good times, bad times. This too shall pass, and we'll continue to grow, inshallah.
And something else will come.
Inshallah.
So I'm going to give just a few moments to Nadeem to make his point. And then I'd request you, so we also want to hear from Sarwat what her vision on how this landscape is evolving over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So Nadeem Saab quickly, and then to Sarwat.
No, thank you, Sadia. No, again, just to sum up what we were saying is that I fully agree with you that it is difficult. and we are into difficult times. But as I say, it's all integrated. We are into difficult times because we are not doing it. Right? A simple example could be our fuel import bill is now to the tune of $30 billion. There are financial analysts around. Can we afford it? If we are not using what we already have and we are not managing what we don't have, it's an issue of governance creating social problems for us. So the cost of doing business is not comparable to the industry or the regions in which we are working. So how to come out of it? Our behaviors to utilize energy and our choices to use the energy sources is a fundamental subject of your ESG strategy in the plan. And honestly telling, without any doubt, we have coal, and the countries around us, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, their mix or the share of coal in their energy mix is much higher than us. The whole developed world utilize these hydrocarbons to build their infrastructures, which make them the first world.
Yeah.
And now when it comes to our turn, it is the difficult scenario. So avoiding a controversy, I would say there may be ways to use coal sustainably. There may be sufficient carbon offsets available. It's a subject to think upon. Again, from the government policy to the corporate plan to individuals' behavior. So we are into this problem, I believe, because of ESG. And honestly, education is required. And as a consultant, these days, as I said, that we have our own impact plan, and whatever we do is part of ESG now. We, with every proposal, we offer to our clients a training that let's sit together. Let's see what it is. Maybe you're not demanding, or maybe you're not requesting the right consultancy. It may not be relevant for you. And we are doing very regularly, and we are seeing encouragement. And I want to see in 5 to 10 years when all of my clients can say that ESG is also our watermark. And whenever we do the strategic planning, risk management, financial or non-financial reporting, it's all backed by our ESG strategy. And it will remain not necessarily consultant dependent. I would, with permission of Shahzad, I would use, it can become a DIY.
Thank you. As somebody from the energy sector, I do endorse a lot of your values. And I apologize because we've been a bit late to the party when it comes to adopting ESG. We're catching up, and I'm going to shamelessly plug in the fact that we're looking at putting 30% of renewables as our supply by 2030. So we've got that ambition in place. And we also understand that there's an inherent conflict between affordability and environment when it comes to inducting coal into the value chain. It's a tricky conversation, but the fact that there are solutions out there, and then, Nadeem Saab mentioned about carbon offsets. So we're exploring that path, again, with a lot of help from valuable partners. So I'm going to hand over to Sarvatji to give her last closing remarks, and then close the session. I know we're running quite behind schedule. So your perspective on how this landscape is evolving.
So thank you, Sadia. I would completely endorse Rana Deem's views and yourselves that energy being a great issue here. We heard in the conversation in the morning that Dr. Seema Kamil also mentioned that energy mix is on the regulator's radar. Climate will be capital charge will be imposed on climate-related issues. That's how the regulator is looking at it. During the recent floods, of course, it was not a distant, altruistic goal. The businesses faced real issues with supply chain, and there was a lot more impact on the bottom line. So obviously, we're on that journey. We're seeing that environment is taking a greater chunk of the conversation. The governance is, of course, even Mr. Aurangzeb mentioned that, that the banks as private sector also are going to channelize their funds accordingly. So ultimately, I mean, we're on the right path. And of course, we all understand education is needed, upskilling is needed. There will be difficulties, but I don't think we have a choice. Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful closing sentence. Thank you so much. You've been wonderful panelists. I have learned, I have been inspired, and I have been provoked. So with that, we close the panel. And thank you, audience, for listening in. And if I may now hand back to our moderator for the evening, afternoon. Thank you.
Remain on the stage. To express our gratitude, I would invite Mr. Joseph Oblabi, Mr. Asad Hamid, and Mr. Temur Beram to give the mementos to our esteemed panelists. We'll start off with giving the memento to Mr. Sadia Dada. Please, a round of applause. A round of applause, everyone. What a beautiful, insightful session that was. Mr. Ikan Ali Khan, General Manager, Lucky Core Industries. A round of applause for him. Ms. Mehvish Kalyani, CEO, Al Karam Studios. Muhammad Shehzad, Finance Director and ESG Ambition Lead Unilever, Pakistan. Mr. Rana Nadeem, Partner KPMG. A round of applause for him. Ms. Sarwat Ehsan, Executive Director, CFA Society. And last, Ms. Nazish Sheikha, Senior Research Associate, CERB. Thank you so much to our esteemed panelists. Group picture, probably. Can we have a group picture, please? Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have tea in the next room. We would appreciate, since we are running out of time, if you could just bring in your tea inside and we will resume with our session. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, there's running tea in the next room. Would appreciate if you could all just grab your teas and just come back on your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, I would request you all to be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a running tea room in the room next to you. Would appreciate if you could all grab your tea and be seated, please. We are starting shortly. Would appreciate all of you to be seated, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now starting. I would request you all, everyone at the end, should please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us our chief a guest of honor for today, Mr. Faisal Ali Sabzwari. I would request all of you to be seated so we can resume our session. Ladies and gentlemen, I would request all of you to be seated, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to start with our panel discussion, but before that, we have our chief guest, Mr. Faisal Ali Sabzwari. Would request all of you to be seated. Would really appreciate if you could all cooperate. Thank you so much. All of those who are standing at the last, I would appreciate if you could all be seated. Would appreciate all of those who are still standing, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you've had a good short tea break. Joining us today as our guest of honor, it is with great pleasure that we are joined by Mr. Faisal Ali Sabzwari, the Federal Minister of Maritime Affairs, Pakistan, a senator and a former provincial minister. His extensive experience and insights are sure to inspire and inform. His passion is public service delivery, purposeful and effective legislation, and reduction of income disparity for creation of equal opportunities for the people of Pakistan. Please welcome with a round of applause Mr. Faisal Ali Sabzwari, who is going to talk on environmental climate change and green growth, a subject of deep interest for all of us. A round of applause, everyone.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much. I was not prepared for this speech right away. So thank you very much, ACCA Pakistan, for having me here. And it certainly is my pleasure. And we welcome the global president of ACCA here on behalf of Pakistan and Pakistan's accountants. I have a written speech here, but I might deviate a bit while talking to the interrelated topics of my speech today. I think the environment certainly is a major issue Pakistan has been facing, and Pakistan will keep facing. Reason being that I was fortunate to attend a couple of conferences on environment internationally. And they say that if the entire Pakistan go green, still we would be facing environmental hazards because we are kind of sandwiched between two of the largest economies of the globe and the kind of carbon emission the entire Pakistan is witnessing is not just because of our fault. It is the geography where Pakistan is placed. Having said that, the responsibility on Pakistanis is certainly very much there. We need to invest not only in these steps, but in the mindset as well. The kind of priorities we Pakistanis need right now for the better environment. I think no government, no entity, and no Pakistani can avoid that. Interestingly, when I became a Federal Minister for Maritime Affairs, despite of being Karachiite, born and bred here, and lived my entire life here, I came to know that kind of injustices we have been doing with our ocean, they are horrible. We are throwing away all kind of waste in our ocean, from biological to chemical, everything. And not only that, we are threatening our ocean and marine life while defishing it, while using all the obsolete means to catch the fish. I have no qualms in accepting that. Unfortunately, environment, especially marine environment, has not been our priority. Governments here in Pakistan, you guys know far better than me the GDP constraints, the budget constraints, or rather the priority constraints, have not been investing much in the environment. So the environment, especially the marine environment, has not been our priority. But yes, we have to wake up call the nature has been giving us every few years. I hope that we do wake up when it is not too late. So what we are trying to do here, when it comes to the maritime division of Government of Pakistan, trying to advocate for a better environment, for better marine environment, trying to educate these stakeholders, because we have a fishermen societies and fishermen folk forums who are the proper stakeholders when it comes to the fishing and everything. But no one tried to educate them to adopt the better ways to have their livelihoods and everything. As everyone knows here, that our coastal lines are our integral parts, but this integral part has been facing some real dangers. The temperature is rising of our ocean. The kind of hazards we are facing, our islands are receding. We have very, very dangerously been reclaiming land. Although that reclaimed land is one of the costliest land in all over the country, but it is, after all, a reclaimed land. And what have we done to stop the nature's? I think the nature has its own way to teach us. We have been victimizing the mangroves. Although we are trying to plant more and more mangroves, our target is 1 million in just a couple of weeks' time. Hopefully, we will succeed. So these are the hazards which Pakistan has been facing. You guys are accountants. You guys are certainly economists. You guys are more interested in numbers. But I sincerely believe that I know a bit of accounting and economics, and I sincerely believe that our environmental say certainly related to the overall security and economic sovereignty as well. Because if Pakistan is on the verge of facing more and more environmental hazards, even the economically viable Pakistan will not remain viable. So that's why our impetus, our input for better environment, be it marine environment, be it the all kind of other environmental challenges, Pakistan need to invest more and more in that. Now, we all face pollution and everything. And believe you me that this is my 20th year as a public representative. I became a public representative in my mid-20s, and a few of my fellows and seniors are sitting here. I can see Faraz Anwar, the very reputable name of Pakistan's accounting profession, rather advisory as well. I can see Rana Nadeem sitting there. I cannot, मैं बता नहीं सकता जो हमने जनाब मुख्तलिफ जॉब्स के ऊपर, if I may recall, SSGC was the job where Rana, मैं और Faraz, and he was a very strict boss of ours when we were auditing the SSGC. So, मेरे ख्याल में साथ ही साथ मैं जो चीज़, क्योंकि यहाँ मीडिया भी है, इसके तवस्सुत से मैं चंद बातें करना चाहूँगा, and with the permission of the global president of ACCA, because I'm not that much fluent when it comes to the hardships of Pakistan in English, so may I speak for a few words in Urdu as well here. मेरे ख्याल में मसाइल के ऊपर यहाँ गुफ्तगू हो रही है, वो तो बहुत अहम है, या जिसके लिए मुझे दावत दी गई है, लेकिन साथ साथ एक दो मसाइल और भी हैं जिनसे पाकिस्तान इस वक्त नबरदाज़मा है, और मेरी ख्वाहिश ये होगी कि आप लोगों की तरफ से और मीडिया के तवस्सुत से बात चीज़ें ज़रूर पहुँचें जो कम अज़ कम दिल में हैं. These are the disadvantages of becoming a federal minister, that I cannot speak at will anywhere, everywhere. I used to enjoy that when I was a senator or just a member of provincial assembly, but whenever changed the hat and became part of the executive, तो थोड़ा सा आपके but they also have been investing in real estate. Here, we know people जिनके 150-200 DHA कराची में प्लॉट लेकर बैठे हुए हैं, एक एक घराना. इंस्टेड ऑफ इन्वेस्टिंग आप सनतों में, इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन पे, आई एडमिट दैट द स्टेट ऑफ पाकिस्तान डिड नॉट प्रायोरिटाइज कि वो सनतों को आपने वो सहूलियात देनी है या चीजें देनी है. When I became a minister, there was a national shipping policy which was introduced in 2019. Later on in 2021, because of IMF or anyone else, and IMF is not a bad boy here. The way we politicians, especially, and our media, they paint it that IMF is bad boy. No, we are the bad boys, because we did not go for the structural changes Pakistan's economy and Pakistan's system required. So someone somewhere had to tell us that whether a lander or an international body, be it FATF or IMF, they are not bad boys. We have our own mess. तो हमें उस मेस को दुरुस्त करने की जरूरत थी. But problem with the Pakistan and Pakistan's politicians and the rather majority, that whenever there's a petroleum prices increase, if I am in the opposition, I would say this is because of the wrongdoing of the politicians of the government. No sir, it is not like that. मेरा अपनी जिंदगी में पहला जो accounting का assignment था, that was at Shell, freight pool. Well, दुनिया में I do not know कि कहां पर ये तरीका है कि जहां यहां पर अगर मुझे इतने का पेट्रोल मिल रहा है तो वहां पर मिले, जो वहां पर कोयला अगर सस्ता मिल रहा है मुझे तो क्या यहां पर मुना महंगा मिले. बट हमने फेडरेशन को मजबूत इस तरह से करते कि फेडरेशन के हर हिस्से के शहरी को ये इल्म होता कि बिकॉज ऑफ हिज जियोग्राफिकल एग्जिस्टेंस वो वहां पर उन्हें ये फायदा है और मुझे यहां पर ये फायदा है. हमने एडहॉक पॉलिसीज ये बनाकर अपने आप को इस नहज तक पहुंचा दिया. और आज भी सूरत हाल ये है कि बजाय इसके कि हम इंसेंटिवाइज करें मुख्तलिफ चीजों को, एंड आई एडमिट दैट कि ये सारी की सारी तल्ख पॉलिसीज जो कि दुरुस्त पॉलिसीज हो सकती हैं बसा औकात, इनको अडॉप्ट करने के लिए यू नीड कंसेंसस. लेकिन क्या पाकिस्तान में कभी कंसेंसस देखा है? आर्मी चीफ के एक्सटेंशन के ऊपर कंसेंसस आता है, या फिर आर्मी पब्लिक स्कूल के सानेहे के बाद जब आर्मी सबको बिठाती है तो कंसेंसस आता है? अदरवाइज देयर इज नो कंसेंसस. दे कैन नॉट बी कंसेंसस. होना यह चाहिए कि हम बतौर पब्लिक रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स, बतौर गवर्नमेंट, हम पर यह प्रेशर आए सिविल सोसाइटी की तरफ से, अपनी बॉडीज की तरफ से, अकाउंटिंग बॉडीज हों, लाइक हमारा बिजनेस सोसाइटीज हों जिस तरीके से, और मुख्तलिफ फोरम्स हैं, FPCCI हो, चेंबर्स हो, सारे के सारे, कि भाई देयर हैज टू बी अ कॉमन इकोनॉमिक एजेंडा ऑफ पाकिस्तान. हूसोएवर कम्स इन द गवर्नमेंट, जो इकोनॉमिक आपकी चीजें हैं वो दुरुस्त रहें. किसी सियासतदान को ये आजादी नहीं होनी चाहिए कि फंडामेंटल्स को दाव पर लगाकर सिर्फ इसलिए कि उसने अर्ली इलेक्शन में जाना है या लेट इलेक्शन में जाना है, इलेक्शन बजट के नाम के ऊपर पाकिस्तान की जो ओवरऑल इकोनॉमिक सोवरेनिटी है उसको क्वेश्चन कर दे. मेरी नजर में ये इसलिए अहम है कि हम इस पर गुफ्तगू तो करना शुरू करें. बहुत सारे लोगों के मुख्तलिफ ख्यालात हैं. आप मुझसे पूछें अर्ली इलेक्शन हो, लेट इलेक्शन हो, मुझे बीइंग अ सेनेटर पर्सनली शायद कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा, बशर्ते जिंदगी आई एम हियर टू स्टे टिल 2027. बट द ओनली इशू इज नो डिलेड इलेक्शन, नो अर्ली इलेक्शन इज गोइंग टू सॉल्व आवर प्रॉब्लम्स राइट नाउ. देयर आर नो शॉर्टकट्स. आपको क्या उस वक्त कंसिस्टेंस मिल जाएगा जब किसी भी पार्टी ए की गवर्नमेंट हो या पार्टी बी की ना हो या पार्टी बी की हो और ए की ना हो? कभी भी नहीं मिलेगा. वजह उसकी ये है वी आर शॉर्ट साइटेड पीपल. बदकिस्मती से ये जो कोताह नजरी है ना, ये जो सिर्फ और सिर्फ हम दूर नहीं देख पाते और एक दूसरे को मोरिद इल्जाम ठहराने की जो हमें आदत है, इसने हमें इस नहज पर पहुंचाया है कि बहुत सारी चीजें जो सामने के अवेलेबल सॉल्यूशंस हैं. हमारे कुछ इकोनॉमिस्ट दोस्त हैं जो मुख्तलिफ मशवरे करते रहते हैं. हमारे साबिका बॉस शब्बर जैदी साहब जो है अपने एलिमेंट में आकर गुफ्तगू करते हैं, उनके भी जो मशवरे होते हैं वो भी. तो अभी 2 रोज पहले ही वजीर आजम पाकिस्तान को मैंने पैगाम छोड़ा और उन तक वो चीजें पहुंचाई। और उनका जो जवाब आया है वो कोई ऐसा जवाब नहीं है कि जो आपको लगे कि एक वेल मीनिंग आदमी का जवाब नहीं है। उनका जो जवाब आया है वो ऐसा नहीं है कि जिनसे लगे कि एक आदमी जिसको फहम नहीं है इन मामलात का, उसका जवाब है। बट द ओनली इशू इज कि बिल्ली के गले में घंटी बांधेगा कौन। पाकिस्तान 22 करोड़ का दिखाया गया है, पता नहीं कितना बड़ा मुल्क, और हम इसी बात पे खुश हैं कि जनाब हम 5वीं दुनिया के बड़े मुल्क हैं। 5वीं दुनिया का बड़ा मुल्क बनना है तो मईशत में बनना है, 5वां दुनिया का बड़ा मुल्क बनना है तो सनतों में, सनत और हिरफत में बनना है, साइंस और टेक्नोलॉजी में बनना है, रिसर्च में बनना है, आबादी में नहीं बनना था हमें। क्योंकि हम बन चुके हैं और ये मुख्तलिफ चीजें आए चली जा रही हैं। मैं पिछले दिनों आतिफ मियां का भी थ्रेड पढ़ रहा था। देखिए अगेन, कम से कम यहां मैं ये गुफ्तगू कर सकता हूं और मीडिया मुझे रिपोर्ट करना चाहे तो आई वुड बी वेरी ग्लैड, मुझे कोई इशू नहीं है। कितना बड़ा हमने जुल्म किया है अपने साथ कि हम किसी भी आदमी की आज 2023 के पाकिस्तान में किसी की जबान, नस्ल, रंग, कहां पैदा हुआ नहीं हुआ, कौन सा मजहब माँ बाप की वजह से उसने इख्तियार किया या कौन सा खुद मुंतखब कर लिया, इसकी बुनियाद पर उसकी पाकिस्तानियत पर 2023 के पाकिस्तान में सवाल उठा रहे हैं। और पाकिस्तान का जर्री से जरी, बहादुर से बहादुर लीडर भी कोई बैठकर उसके हवाले से वजाहत नहीं दे सकता। और मेरे मुल्क के मुस्तकबिल के हवाले से जब कोई मुझसे बात करता है तो मैं उसको सिर्फ एक जवाब देता हूं कि पाकिस्तान की, मान लेते हैं ना, अहम तरीन मनासिब में से है आर्मी चीफ का मनसब, तो जब पाकिस्तान के आने वाले आर्मी चीफ को अपनी एक्सेप्टेबिलिटी प्रूव करने के लिए अपने घर में मीलाद शरीफ करवाना पड़े और उसकी तस्वीर बाहर भेजनी पड़े, तो उसके माने ये हैं कि हमारे ये बहुत बड़े मसाइल हैं जिनसे हमने नबरदाज़मा होना है। Environment is not only the environment. Environment is not only the environment which is pollution based, whether marine pollution, whether other environmental hazards, but the environment which we are facing, the pollution which we are facing is also the pollution of the mindsets, the pollution of the thought process and the short-sightedness which we are facing. उम्मीद करता हूं कि जनाब कि अगले बरस जब आपकी कॉन्फ्रेंस होगी so we will be having a better Pakistan. As Ahmed Nadeem Qasmi said, we did not work for that, but still we can pray for that and start working from today, if we did not start working yesterday. कि खुदा करे कि मेरी अर्ज़ पाक पर उतरे वो फसले गुल से अंदेशाए ज़वाल ना हो, यहाँ जो फूले रहे सदी, यहाँ खिज़ां को गुजरने की भी मजाल ना हो, और खुदा करे कि मेरे एक भी हमतन के लिए हयात जुर्म ना हो, जिंदगी वबाल ना हो। लॉन्ग लिव पाकिस्तान।
Mr. Faisal Ali Sabzwari, I would request you to be on the stage. To express our gratitude, I would like to invite Mr. Joseph Avlavi, Mr. Asad Hamid, Mr. Terum Biram, and Ms. Shaista to present memento to our chief guest today. A round of applause. Thank you, sir, for a beautiful session. Thank you so much. Our co-organizer Seed Venture and strategic partner Bank Islami and Coca-Cola. For our strategic partner address, we have Mr. Adnan Masood, Head Talent and Organizational Development at the Bank Islami. Also a thought leader with proven experience of working in large financial, health, oil and gas, NPP organizations. Please welcome with a round of applause, Mr. Adnan Masood.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Great. Is everyone here? Is everyone here? Is everyone here? Great. Excellent. So I'm looking for a caller mic, and I won't talk any intelligent stuff like last people, my predecessors have been talking about. I need to move. Right. Yeah, switch it on. Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. So, great. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. So I'll try to speak loud so you all can. So this opportunity got extended to me last. So thinking about what to say and what not to say, especially I've had amazing ministers and the dignitaries, they all have been here and they're talking about all the intelligent stuff that I can't talk about. So I'll talk about very simple, common sense, layman stuff. Actually, I prepared this presentation thinking in mind there will be students over here. So I didn't know that. So if I come across completely stupid and dumb, please forgive me for that. So let's just go through very opportunities in the times of uncertainty. So talking about uncertainty, so the majority of this room are Muslims. So uncertainty is very common sense thing for Muslims, isn't it? Allah said very clearly in Quran that everything in this life is uncertain. Nothing is certain. Can you hear me? Okay. So Allah says Quran very clearly that everything in this life is uncertain. Nothing is certain. Everything is certain after hereafter. So what are we getting stressed about? So chill, relax, try to focus, possibly start looking into some of the things we can simply not look, not strategic idea. Simple. I'm sorry about that. It's really affecting my public image. This is the first time I'm on the stage, so I have to. So the first thing is, don't resist uncertainty. Embrace it. Don't worry about it too much. Think about how do you change. It's about mindset shift. It's about changing mindset, not getting stressed out about. I know there are challenges out there, about the problems that we've got. Let's focus on some of these simple strategies we can adopt to. So changing the mindset, because living uncertain is the only certainty out there. Everything is uncertain. That's the only certain thing we have, right? Make sense? Make sense? Okay, great. Other bit is, we got 5 minutes, so I'm gonna dash. Pathways as fluid. We all think only ways up. Not every time only ways upward. There's sideways. They're staying there. They're going down, downsizing, sideways, working different ways. The pathways are everywhere. Not working? Yeah, okay, cool. So please don't take 2 minutes away from my presentation because that's not my problem, right? That's not my fault. Okay, so pathways are all directions, not only upwards. So always remember, professionals, business and everything, pathways, not only upwards, they're all directions. Focus on building skills and capabilities for future, right? As our respective minister said, that we've been maybe possibly not thinking ahead, maybe sleeping for a long period of time. We just gotten up and realized that ChatGPT is doing everything for us, right? And how many people, everyone talks about it, but how many people in this room can actually use the technology? Okay, handful people. So if you all are saying we're the business leaders in this room, we all should be able to use the technology that's coming our ways. My 12-year-old son, he's actually learning how to work on ChatGPT. So that's the way to go. Invest in future skills. It's also about learning new skills, not yourself, your workforce, your friends, your colleagues, people down you and above you. thinking of new ways of doing business, new ways of doing things. As I said, not thinking upwards all the time. Leverage your network. Don't be shy to ask for help. Ask for help when you can. Stop looking for magic solutions. They're all gone. We had COVID for a couple of years. Everything is gone in that. So there are no magic wands out there anymore. So you have to think of yourself, how you're going to go ahead. No IMF is going to come and help us. So we have to basically be resourceful ourselves. It's not just about being, having the resource. It's about resourcefulness as well. Are you still with me? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, cool. I'll be finishing. So keep pushing forward. Change with the change. Yeah? Only constant thing we've got is change. It's always there. It's always going to be. It's always going to change. So you can't stop that. So change with the change. Otherwise, we're going to stay behind just like we have been. So I've said this before. Focus on what you can control and influence what you cannot control. So with the old two circles everyone talks about, circle of control and circle of influence, or things in your control, things out of your control. So stop worrying about things we cannot control, because you can't control that. It's very simple, right? There's no super logical thing about it. You can't control IMF, you can't control politicians, you can't control anybody. You can only control yourself. So change start from yourself. So fix your home, fix your street, fix your areas, and then start talking about the whole country. Everybody in this room, or people I've spoken to, they all have got amazing ideas about fixing Pakistan or economy. But actually, it never works, because we all talk about it. We're all amazing talking about it, but it's about implementing those ideas and doing something about it as well. So studies I've looked into, there have been very few things which are very common in the successful people. They had an absolute clarity on purpose. They had a drive and motivation to do the right thing. So we need to be clear on having the clarity of purpose, why we are here for, what are we going to do, starting from your home to your area, organizations, and then the country. Drive and motivation to do the right thing. Desire to learn and make the change happen, and be resilient in the time of uncertainty and adversity. So as a result, the success will inevitably come. Or I'll say the last thing, as I said in Quran clearly tells us that man only achieve what they aim for. We only get what we aim for. So our aim is only to talk about the problems. The outcome is not going to be anything else. It's just going to be another problem. So we all talk about problems at our workplace. We'll talk about traffic, economics, politics, all that stuff. We go outside of our workplace or home and we become one of them. So the change is basically within yourself. That's a very simple strategy we can all adopt to. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adnan Masood. Our second panel discussion is centered around enabling Pakistan, fintech, reshaping the financial services ecosystem, the use of technology to improve financial services, including banking, payments, insurance, and investments. Pakistan's fintech sector has been rapidly growing in recent years, transforming the country's financial services ecosystem. To deliver a keynote message for this discussion, we have with us Ms. Noreen Hayat, CEO at ZootPay. Noreen is a serial entrepreneur, having closely worked with the microfinance sector. Her expertise is supplemented by her experience in credit ratings, Planned Parenthood, education, and mental health. Noreen has studied the field of inclusive finance at the Harvard Business School, which lends her expertise and global insights into financial inclusion. She has been featured in Forbes, Reuters, Women in FinTech Power List, Business Financing UK, and other renowned global publications, recognizing leaders and game changers around the world. We would welcome with a round of applause Ms. Noreen Hayat on the stage.
Whoops. I've been told I'm short of time and I have to wrap it up in half the time I was allocated, so I'll try my best. It's a pleasure being here. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's quite exciting, actually, because, usually the panels that I speak on, and they're mostly very fintech and banking focused, and it's interesting now to have, an ACCA finance and accounting related panel, because that's really how I started my career, in credit ratings, which can actually be very dry, but, it got me where I am today. So, I think I'll try to keep it, all of us over here are aware of most of the numbers that, the industry overall faces, but I'll just touch upon some important areas. Now, we're talking about how fintech and technology can really catalyze financial inclusion in Pakistan, and we're all very well aware of how it can. But, we've usually been just having conversations. Yes, recently, over the recent past, we've seen a lot of initiatives that have been brought about, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. We're just beginning to scratch the surface. And I think it'll help us a lot if we start with what financial inclusion really implies. Now, the World Bank, it terms financial inclusion as a means where individuals and businesses have access to useful and affordable financial products and services that meet their needs. This could include transactions, payments, savings, credit, and insurance, but it has to be delivered in a responsible and a sustainable way. Now, in Pakistan and in most other countries now, we view financially included as those people who have a bank account. But is that really enough, to be financially included? And, we've actually been flaunting numbers about, number of bank accounts increasing. Recently the Karanda's Financial Inclusion Survey came out. And, as per the survey, Pakistan's financial inclusion, which means number of people having a bank account, it's increased to 30% of adults from 21% in 2020. Yes, while that's an increase, it doesn't really imply how financial services are really having an impact on the day-to-day lives of people, because value addition doesn't only come from opening a bank account. Value addition comes in from adding on many more services, which now a lot of fintechs are working on. But the environment, which has to be conducive to enable that, there's still a lot more that has to be done. Interestingly, and this is the sad state of affairs, and this is even a conversation even today. We're talking about financial inclusion numbers, and we talk about gender gap. Right now, 47% of adult men have a bank account as opposed to 13% women. While the number is still increasing, it's still a very bleak number to look into. Now, despite Pakistan having 87% teledensity, you talk about 193 million cellular subscriptions. Now, if you talk about unique subscribers, that would be probably much less. And then, about 122 million broadband users. Now, despite this, the challenge here is digital adoption is amazing, but the readiness to adopt digital financial services, that's still an area that hasn't been worked on enough. There could be various reasons for this. It could be mismatched financial products. It could be lack of awareness. It could be elements of fraud, or there could be elements of cost. There's so many things that are involved here. And I have been a strong proponent of how do you actually convert this huge asset that we have of digital inclusion and convert it into financial inclusion. I actually had a chance to work with a multilateral agency, and we were working on, developing a financial product for females in Sindh. And it was really an unfortunate state of affairs where we saw the dilemma that they were facing on a day-to-day basis. Even owning a mobile phone for a woman is looked down upon. And there are various reasons for it. Unfortunately, these cultural barriers have really kept us afloat in a lot of, I'd say we're in a bubble, and that bubble has to burst sooner than we'd like it to. If you talk about, other types of financial services than just owning a bank account, you talk about credit, it's under 5% of your GDP. You talk about savings, under 10% of the population actually saves formally. Insurance is even lower, it's 2%. Now, despite Pakistan having 40 plus banks, this is still the state of affairs. And why? Why? Because people either do not have suitable collaterals, they have high operating costs, They have weak risk rating tools. And, as we are all aware, and we talk about this very often, the banks are still focusing on funding government expenditures as opposed to serving the masses. We have the new digital banking regulations that have come out, but unfortunately, the economic state of affairs is actually driving the masses to invest in T-bills, which, are risk-free and really driving great value in terms of the rates that are being offered. But today, I think despite the regulators' efforts over the recent past, we've seen some great initiatives. We've seen, the introduction of the Asan mobile account. We've seen RAS coming into play. We've seen digital onboarding regulations for consumers as well as for merchants. And most recently, the digital banking licenses that have been given out. So all of these are, efforts in the right direction, but we can't leave it all to the regulator. The organizations have to act much faster. And I think one thing that I've seen with my, short career that I've had in, financial inclusion, we all work in silos, unfortunately. The focus is very myopic and it's very self-centered. There has to be a lot more collaboration happening. And it's unfortunate that, we're still thinking about how to go about it. So today I'd like to drive, your attention to 3 core areas of fintech that could really drive inclusion, amongst many others, but 3 that I believe would be important in this year and the year ahead. And while I'm talking about fintech, it's very important that fintech has 2 elements, financial and technology. But more importantly, while we're talking about high tech, fintech cannot go without high touch. That's an element that we miss often. If you want your masses to be included on a wider mainstream level, we'll have to make sure that we take them and evolve it through a high touch mechanism as well, because our masses are not really prepared to adopt technology all of a sudden unless there's value that they see. So the first one is that first trend that I'd actually like to draw your attention on is embedded finance and rebundling. Now, what embedded finance means, it's one of the biggest opportunities in this area, because right from instant payments to credit to savings of how they can be embedded into apps, the element of platformication is something that we're talking about a lot. Easy Pesa, for example, is a great example where we have multiple avenues coming into that one app, and trying to promote that. And while we're talking about embedded finance, we've got areas such as centralized KYC that are very important. We're talking about interoperability. That's an area that the State Bank is really pushing for. So this is, you talk about digital credit, for example. We've been working with banks, various NBFCs who are working on how they can embed credit into different apps. That could be an e-commerce app. You see 80% year-on-year growth happening within the e-commerce sector. Why not, build upon that and start embedding credit into it or embedding savings into it? Now, see, these are lower-hanging fruits that can be easily capitalized upon. So I'm just going to try to cut that short. The second part is that of AI and analytics. We've been talking about that since years, but I think I heard of something really interesting a couple of days back, and this is very important for the accountants here. So what I heard was that, within the United States, the number of accountants, CPAs, and corporate finance workers have dropped by 17% over the last year. And why we see that is because now there's a shift of people who are not joining accounting, accounting related degrees, because they see a shift happening towards different skill sets. But we know how important it is really, the field of accounts. While accounting might change, the tools of accounting might change. Accounting itself is an area that is not going to change. So, this is an opportunity for all the accountants over here. How do you capitalize upon new technologies such as AI and data science to start really analyzing what's going on, help corporates, help the institutions that you're working in, and start making use of technology to assist the organizations? Because this is, or maybe the curriculums of how we're looking into it, the standards of how we're looking into it. I mean, I've certainly seen, interacting with my auditors, how much evolution is required in that area to assist companies on the financial tech piece. So this is another area that I'd actually like to focus on. Credit scoring is something that is very close to my heart, because this is something that we, within our company have deployed to assess the credit worthiness of the masses. While it does not only help in customer acquisition, it also helps in really assessing how customers would, interact with the products that they're dealing with. And, we've actually seen, when we started lending, we saw defaults north of 50%. This is when we were going out without any credit scoring. And, over the years, when Tez actually got acquired, the credit scoring piece via AI and data science actually helped us to bring those defaults down to under 3%. So that's the power that, AI and data science can have and how it can help serve the masses in getting them included. And then I, touch upon last but not the least is open banking. While talking about, AI and data science, you need data at the end of the day, right? And in Pakistan, access to data is still a core concern. The State Bank currently is working on the open banking framework. And, this framework is something that the IFC is supporting them on. But what we need to understand is data is far beyond just banking transaction data. Banking transaction data just talks about people who are banked. What about the people, the majority of the people who are outside of the banking mainstream? You've got, telco data, e-commerce data, utility data, you name it. The data is just everywhere. But how do you really materialize it and channel it in the right direction is something that the regulators have to, unify their vision on. And it's not only going to be the State Bank or the SECP. You need, the PTA to get involved. You need NADRA to get involved. And unfortunately, we've got agendas, existing here on the political side, which actually deter the use of data. But we really need to now thinking ahead of how we're actually going to get this data into the mainstream. And this could be a regulated sector. You could talk about data repositories that are licensed by the State Bank, for example. So I think that's an area that we can really focus on together. And we've got companies like Prosper. You've got credit bureaus working on this. I'm trying to really wrap this up fast. And so there's a lot happening, but unfortunately, execution is still it's slow. And I just feel we need to focus on collaborating and having a longer term vision. And a lot of the people who might be thinking about doing something of their own and, or, maybe coming up with new technology, have a purpose at the heart of what you're doing. Financial inclusion might be a purpose and there are various ways of doing it, but if you keep on deterring from the purpose, it's going to be very difficult to have a longer term sustainable impact. So I tried to just club them into a very short word, but that's a little that I had to say. We're happy to, take in, different words from the industry and see how we can build upon this as an ecosystem at Zood and Tez and, the wider network here. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much. It's a pity that we are short on time. We're going to start up with our panelist session. To moderate the panel discussion, I would now like to invite Ms. Nasha Tingra, who's a senior manager in consulting with expertise in digital data, strategy, and fintech. She's a thought leader in the fintech and digital strategy space and has published articles and has spoken at industry events on topics such as AI, blockchain, and digital transformation. Please welcome Ms. Nasha on the stage. A round of applause, please. With the panelists, we have Mr. Asfar Naseem, he's the CEO at Alpha Capital. He has more than 12 experience spanning across equity research, corporate finance, and private equity. Please welcome Mr. Asfar Naseem on the stage. A round of applause, everyone. Next, we have with us Mr. Mohammad Shoaib, CEO, Al Mizan Investment Limited, which is the largest asset management company in Pakistan. His journey spans from setting up Pakistan's first Sharia-compliant asset management company in Pakistan to making it the largest AMC in the industry. Mohammad Shoaib on the stage, please. Thank you. Next, we have on the line Shehzad Shahid, Group PTPS. Shehzad is amongst Pakistan's top IT industry leaders with a demonstrated history of over 2 decades in the IT industry across multiple geographies with focus on digital banking and payments. Please welcome Mr. Shehzad Shahid on the
So let's discuss with our esteemed panelists how far along these fintechs have come, what is at all limiting their growth, and what could possibly be the areas of enablement and support that they would need for to foster a thriving digital ecosystem. In the interest of time, could I please, just with the permission of all our panelists, proceed with the first three questions to Mr. Shahzad Shahid, since he'll have to leave shortly. Thank you. Shahzad sir, my first question to you is, what has been the role of fintechs in developing the financial ecosystem in Pakistan, and how is TPS collaborating with other industry players to further build this ecosystem?
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. So let's just put a few things in the context. What is startup? What is fintech? There are banks, there are corporates. So what is the space all about? So startup or fintech is actually a startup in the financial services space. The difference that they bring is a new mindset, which is more agile, more responsive, more modern, tech-driven, and more focused. So this is what really defines a startup fintech compared to the incumbents that we have in the markets globally. So TPS back in 1996, when we got formed, we were a startup back then, and then at that time we created technology platforms which helped OneLink to get established, which helps build payment services that we see today across Pakistan, be it by Jazz Cash, Easy Paisa, OneLink, that gets established. So this brought those startups, those very specific use case driven companies, help in bringing to life. Fintechs in Pakistan are a big need for a very simple reason. We are a country with 220 to 30 million population. 65% of it, roughly 150 million, are youth under the age of 30, 35. This is such a massive population. The second interesting element of Pakistan is most of the Pakistanis are digital first or mobile literate, right? Because you can see anybody who now has a mobile phone and they're using the mobile phone for whatever reasons that they need to have. So we have these people who just need to be brought in the financial network through the digital financial services. And these guys are at times not welcomed by the banks because they do not have enough money with them that they can open a bank account and maintain them. And honestly, these people themselves do not really see why they need a bank account. And this is where you see very specific use case. That could be lending, that could be, for example, opening a wallet for example, a corporate for a BNP and whatever, right? So these are use cases that have started to come up. And these fintechs in Pakistan, if you talk about Kinu, which is a large POS network, all the large POS acquiring networks on which the digital payments have to happen, other than one HBL, all the larger networks are coming from the fintechs. OPay, PayMob, Kinu, they're all fintechs, right? Similar thing is about e-commerce. What is Daraz, right? What are the others? They're all done by the fintechs in Pakistan. None are being done by the large incumbents. Those are now dovetailing them, connecting with them, and helping them grow. TPS as an organization has been into providing those technology platform and services that help them cut short the cycle of development and really focus on the specific use cases which they know the best, and they can really have a quick time to market.
Thank you. That's very encouraging to hear about how your organization has been at the forefront to enable and foster this ecosystem. I think in the interest of time, we can just take another question from you. So how does TPS's experience with fintechs in international markets compare with the local experience? And what are the top 5 areas you feel that fintechs need to be enabled in Pakistan?
Let me just quickly answer these both questions together. So what is different between Pakistan and when we say international? So when you talk about international, all right, I mean, not talk about a specific country that matter, but
we have been very focused in the Middle East market. We have been very focused working with fintechs in the European market. And what we see there is a power of collaboration, which is far more than Pakistan. Now, when I say collaboration, it basically means the fintechs, government, and the banks, somehow they need to come together quickly, collaborate with each other, share information, share the infrastructure, and then create the products which possibly cannot be done by one entity alone. So open banking, for example, Noreen talked about it. Open banking basically means that I can develop a mobile app where I can link my bank account and check my bank statement. Now, if, for example, somebody creates a fintech which has to lend money, all right, you can simply query that bank and ask the average balance, the monthly salary validated by the actual data coming from the bank. It's not possible today. Today you have to go for the bank statement and really do that eyeballing and check that out. It's not possible. You can't do the quick onboarding and lending that way. So there are tons of use cases about the open banking. The second is about open data. When Obama took his charge in the second term, the first thing that he signed was open banking regulations. Sorry, open data. What is open data? Open data basically means if, for example, Pakistan has a problem of energy conservation, if you are able to publish the anonymized data about energy conservation, the electricity conservation, we will see startups coming up which will create specific products that will help people get educated about that, how is the energy conservation in my neighborhood by other houses. If I know that the neighbors in my community are actually using less electricity compared to me, then I will really reflect, that what I need to do. So if you have data, you can give very specific advice, which can have a very specific result. So this is open data. The third is incentivize. The biggest competition to fintechs, government, law enforcers, and banks is cash. Cash is our love, and we all are used to it. But the problem is that this cash is the biggest roadblock to anything that we want to accomplish. Efficiency, documentation, personalized services, artificial intelligence, we all need data. Cash leaves no traces. So how to convert cash transactions, digital transactions? So either we enforce, 70 years have gone, we have failed. 98% retail payments in Pakistan are by cash today. 90% of e-commerce transactions are cash on delivery. Even when we initiate a digital payment on digital thing on e-commerce, we pay with cash, 90%. So there has to be incentive for the buyer and the seller, or they have to be restriction for the buyer or the reseller. The country next door has done both. They have certain restrictions on cash transactions and certain incentives on cash transactions. Fourth is about letting the startups make money. There is this misconception in Pakistan that making money is a sin. It's a taboo. बहुत पैसे कमा रहा है. We are happy to quote examples of Elon Musk and Bill Gates. We are not ready to make anybody in Pakistan Bill Gates and Elon Musk. We look at with this thing कि यार यहाँ कुछ चक्कर है दाल में का, ये मुल्क को क्यों नहीं दे रहा, मुझे क्यों नहीं दे रहा, उसको क्यों नहीं दे रहा, right? So we don't want people to get wealthy. So just giving one example, sitting on the stage, Nadra, for example, is a government service. The data that they maintain is our data, citizen data. Query that data means you have to pay to them. Free of cost, convenient when you are paying to nobody else but the government entity. At least they can give you free services. And then the dichotomy is that when you talk about RAST, which is amazing initiative, State Bank says that it has to be free service. Yeah. Now the private sector entities have to do a free service, in the love of the country, and the government sector is having our data, which has to come at a paid price. So this contradiction has to be resolved, and we really have to create an environment where people want to invest money because they want to see the results coming back to them. I think this is pretty much all. The last thing is digital Pakistan. So if the country next door, or any country for that matter, if they talked about massive digitization, export of $180 billion, we really have to do soul searching. What we had been doing since 1990 till 2022. All right, other than the lip service for the crude word, or subliminal or very efforts, we've not done much about it. We have not done much as a concentrated, holistic, well-converging effort as a state. We have done things in the silos. These silos have to be broken, and there has to be a very comprehensive, elaborate, well-converged, well-integrated services, which is about digital Pakistan, because when only you will force the government entities to offer the services digitally, then we'll see a lot of fintechs and startups coming over and create services against it. If our payments to the government have to be cashed and by the check and by the papers, I don't see a lot of use cases coming up that we will have that have investment. That said, Pakistan, by the way, just for record, most of the investments in startups in Pakistan in the past 5 years is coming to the is coming to the fintechs. I'm sorry, I have to go. Thank you so very much. It's a lovely panel. I would have loved to stay there, but it's a bit of getting late for me. Thank you so very much.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. As a token of gratitude, we would like to present a memento. Please, a round of applause for him for sharing his insights. Sorry for the disruption. Let's continue, please, with the panelists.
Gentlemen, my next question for this panelist is to Mr. Mohammad Shoaib. So how do you see the development of the fintech ecosystem in Pakistan specifically affecting the asset management industry? And what opportunities does it present to institutions such as Al Mizan Investments?
Assalamu alaikum. I know it has been a long day and people are waiting for the lunch, but I'll be very brief here. So when we are talking about the fintech, one thing that we have to understand and realize is that any new initiative or any technology development has to do some value addition. And that value addition has to come from obviously the supplier of the service and obviously the user of the services. So the landscape in Pakistan, and obviously globally it has changed, but even in Pakistan, due to COVID, actually, entire digital transformation has actually become very fast-paced, and there has been a tremendous growth and there's an opportunity. So when, as you said, uncertain times, there were uncertain times due to COVID, people were not able to meet each other, people were not able to interact, and that is where real revolution started. Although that journey was there, it started before, but it was really escalated during that period. So from the perspective of the asset management company, certainly there are a lot of use cases, and rather than talking about fintech, I would say there's a move towards a wealth tech. So basically not just use of your financials, but we are moving toward the use of for financial transaction, but also for management of your wealth, technology is being used. So Noreen earlier talked about digital adoption, and financial inclusion or financial adoption, the digital adoption has really taken a lot of traction in Pakistan with about 180, 190 million mobile phone users. But financial, as far as financial is concerned, the major thing has been only been payments. And that is where we have made good progress. So for example, from asset management perspective also, uh, like we do thousands of transactions every day, and 70% of our transactions are done digitally, paperless. So that is certainly a big impact on the environment. But I think the major value addition comes from the ease of doing business for the customers. So earlier, as I said before, about 80-90% of the transactions were using paper. The customer had to actually fill up lengthy forms and submit it. But it's somewhere in middle of 2020, digital account opening was also allowed by the central bank and by the SCCP, whereby the asset management companies, including Al Mizan, are allowed to open the account digitally. Now that has actually helped us to increase the volumes tremendously because our efficiency has certainly increased. At the same time, the cost of doing business has actually come down, which has actually been to the consumer or the users or the investors. Also, one of the challenges for us as a niche player is our outreach. From the perspective of outreach, actually, as you know, Pakistan is a big country, 220 million people, and the penetration of asset management products is very limited. Even for the banks, we just Noreen talked about, I think about 60 million account holders, and the bankable population is not from different estimates somewhere between 20 to 30%. So now, with the use of technology, the wallets has actually increased to something like 85 million. So at the moment, we are working with different digital providers, with different platforms to populate our product on their platforms, and that is a big game changer in terms of increasing our reach to the consumer. Also, from the perspective of from the asset management perspective, one of the important areas is the robo-advisory. Now, that is something very, very important because certainly we have lack of trained manpower in the country who can give good investment advice. At the same time, maintaining the same user experience in terms of investment advice is very, very difficult because every person is different. So if you can use robo-advisory not to eliminate the personal advice, implement the personal advice, that is also a game changer that asset management companies are working on, and Al Mizan is taking a lot of initiative in that respect. Thank you.
Welcome. It's great to know about how your business is also moving towards robo-advisories and understanding that in Pakistan, that's very crucial that our people, they have this need for human touch. So we need to, whatever digital propositions that we have, they need to have a certain element of human touch to it. My next question would be to Mr. Mubashir Zubairi. Yes. What role can fintechs play in expanding outreach and attracting new clients to our wealth management industry?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me. So I will talk from a digital AMC perspective and share our opinion. Like we mentioned, there has been a lot of work on the fintechs and increasing the financial. There's been a lot of focus on financial inclusion and increasing branchless banking, providing digital payment solutions, digital wallets. But unfortunately, there has not been much work done on the wealth tech side, providing access to savings, and which is actually the need of the hour. So we are focusing on that because working with the Swedish asset management, we have seen the impact digital distribution channels actually have on reaching us, is getting short-term investments into the capital market, which is needed in Pakistan. Like we know, we have seen numbers improve on bank account ownerships, branchless banking, still percent of population having investment accounts, which is not improving over the past decade, or which the growth is good. So to improve that, I think this is where the fintech actually they mainly liquidity, which comes at very low cost compared to the brick and mortar model. So that is where Mahana Wealth is actually trying to target using digitization, providing uniform experience to the users, painless experience, smooth onboarding, robo advice, and so on. So that is where we come in to play in the wealth management space. Well, so far we've only started discussions with the regulators, with the market participants. The feedback is very encouraging because everyone, especially those associated with the market, understand the gap in the market, but there's not much done, like I said. So the feedback is encouraging. We are going to go live soon, and we are hopeful that we will see good numbers.
Wish you the very best. My question to the next panel is here, Mr. Asfar Naseem. So we see global case studies where investments in wealth tech platforms, they've scaled on the premise of providing seamless customer experience, transparency, and low-cost solutions. How do you see firms like yours leveraging fintechs, and what could be possible impacts for sustainable business?
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you, Nasha. Thank you, ACCA Pakistan, for having me here as part of this esteemed panel. So firstly, it's my firm belief that all financial service firms, be it asset management companies, brokerage houses, insurance companies, will have to start to look at themselves as technology firms or otherwise risk going out of business in the next 10 to 15 years. If you don't do that, then we are essentially looking at our Kodak moment in either in the same decade or the next decade. So essentially, when you say firms like ours, we are essentially talking about incumbents facing the challenge of transforming ourselves to be able to transforming ourselves into a fintech, to be able to work with other fintechs that are coming in with a modern way of thinking and fresh mindset. So before I move ahead, let us just discuss the environment that we face, the wealth management or investment industry in Pakistan. So there are a little over 500,000 investors that invest in either mutual funds or stock markets in Pakistan. That amounts to roughly slightly more than 2 investors for every 1,000. The same number is 10 for Indonesia, 15 for Bangladesh, around 30 for India, for Malaysia. China is around 120. US is north of 400. So even if we compare ourselves to our two neighbors, Sri Lanka and India, they are at 30, we are at 2. Even Bangladesh, which used to be a part of Pakistan 50 years ago, they are at 15, we are at 2. So when it's becomes a little embarrassing when we call ourselves financial services industry and we're not an industry, not even a cottage industry. Probably we built a cottage and we need to put an industry inside. So so that is the challenge or the environment we face. Why is investor base in Pakistan slow? That's a long discussion. Probably the more relevant point here is how we can solve this issue and increase this investor base. And I firmly believe, the way forward is technology. We have a classic example of Indonesia in front of us. They were at levels similar to ours, 2 investors for 1,000 individuals around 5 to 6 years ago. And over the last 5 to 6 years, they have more than quadrupled their investor base at the percentage of population. And they did it through technology. And their new investors and fresh investors that have come into the market, most of them have been between the ages of 25 and 40. And why is technology that important? It's unit economics. As per our analysis that we do for ourselves as part of company strategy, the investor base in Pakistan in the range of 6 to 7 million investors. That's 12 to 14 times the current investor base. But the tricky part is that the average account size of this market If we take out the 3 to 5,000 institutions and high net worth individuals, so the average account size of these individuals is going to be anywhere between 300,000 to 400,000 rupees. And we're essentially looking at an average revenue per user of anywhere between 3,000 to 6,000 rupees per annum. Now, under current brick and mortar that the industry right now, this is a loss-making customer. So we as an industry don't tap them. And even if when they come to us, I would admit that the level of service that these customers get is subpar, of earning them, especially and losing these customers. So the only way we can make sense out of or make these unit economic work is we interact with these customers through a technology platform rather than a human interacting with humans, and that's also only possible through technology. So what houses like ours or asset management companies need to do is transform themselves into technologies or have a fintech mindset, and serve as highways or infrastructure that modern or new upcoming fintech startups can connect with and provide an interface with the end consumer. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, very interesting takeaways emanating from this. Speak from the other side, speaking as an incumbent player, challenges we face, need to enhance our tech platforms to be able to connect better and serve better. Thank you. My next question goes to Mr. Shaham Ahmed. So what are some of the key opportunities and challenges for fintech startups in Pakistan? And as professional accountants, how do you see us playing a role in this entire process?
Thank you, ma'am. First of all, I want to say congratulations to ACCA to conduct such a wonderful event and informative event. And then we also welcome Mr. Joseph, ACCA president in Pakistan, and they support a lot of professional accounting, and they did and they are doing a lot of to develop professional accountancy in Pakistan. In 20 years now, more than 15,000 professional accountant of ACCA qualified. Before discussion, we just want to make one correction. Before this panel discussion, one of our speakers told that in CPA, last year 17% decline in accountancy growth or registration of a student for accountancy. Just for your information, as per SECP record, we have 650,000 companies, and we just have 40,000 accountant in Pakistan, qualified accountant. 5% of a total registered companies means every 20 companies we have one accountant. So once we have to compare, the local region, we have to compare what are the requirements of the region. Like in India, a qualified accountant, or I mean CA, getting 5 times more from PhD qualified. So there is a lot of opportunities in Pakistan. We have to play as a professional accountant. A lot of market is available. So and lot of opportunities is available for the professional accountant. Regarding fintech, so there's a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunities. In last 3 to 4 months, we attended almost 5 to 10 programs on fintech. All are focusing on fintech. Yes, it is a requirement of the current scenario. But we are the nation. We have a population of 220 million, and we have just 66 million, 66 million accounts, bank accounts. We just completed 75 years of independence, and only 25% of our population have a bank account. What are the reasons now banks are not working to expansion? If we see, as informed, 193 million people have mobiles. Over 66% population, literate population, that means they can read, they can write. So we can say there's a lot of opportunities, but there's a flaw in our product. If we see, we are the, we can say we have a GDP of $350 billion, but our stock exchange size is $30 billion. Our mutual fund size, $2 billion. So, and then we say why people investing in properties and gold, because they don't know how to invest in this opportunity, how to approach these opportunities. This is the main issue. I am from one of the leading automobile industry. 60% of our GDP come from rural areas. People comes and buying car, paying cash in a bundle. They are not using bank accounts. They have a money. I told that 60% of the population of GDP belong to the rural areas, means they have 60% money come from our rural areas. They have a buying capacity, but we are not focusing. People still have fear to come to the bank and opening the bank account. How we can develop fintech market in the Pakistan? So first of all, we have to provide information to the people. This is the biggest challenge. How they can operate, how can use the fintech technology in Pakistan. They know how to use social media. As I told, 193 million people have mobiles, smart mobiles. They can make a TikTokers. We already, so it means they know how to operate the mobile, but they don't know how to do their financial transaction through the mobile. So this is the biggest challenge. How we tap this market. Second, regulations. There is no regulations for startup companies. Lack of funds at the start, even in foreign developed countries. A lot of people support startups, but in Pakistan, no such support in Pakistan for these startups. Even they start, but during the operation they need support, and no one, even banks are not supporting these fintech companies. Further, if we told the accountant role, professional accountant role, so they have to modify himself. They have to change their style to cover the fintech technology, blockchains. They should need to take a knowledge regarding the blockchain, regulations, requirements, ethics. What are the ethical requirements for fintechs? So a lot of things accountant need to change, and our professional bodies like CA, ICMA Pakistan, and ACCA, they have to change their syllabus for professional accountant and include fintechs, ethics for financial transactions in their syllabus, so they can match the market. 4 months before, we met one of the CEO of the biggest IT company, and they say they need accountant with financial knowledge, and they say they have a requirement of 15,000 accountant for this position, but we have not a professional accountant with the knowledge of fintech. So this is the right time of our professional institutes who are providing the accounting knowledge, or universities, that they should train our students regarding the fintech and technologies and finance and make a best combination. Thank you.
Right, sir. Due to time limitations, I'm sorry, but I can only ask one more question to each of our panelists. So my next question is to Mr. Mohammed Shoaib. So investment platforms in our part of the world, they actually serve the high net worth individuals. Now, whilst fintechs tend to disrupt in the masses, how do you see these well-tech platforms in Pakistan crafting strategies and collaborating to address the investment and saving needs of a diverse population?
The environment, the entire ecosystem is changing very fast. And some of it has been already been touched upon, but we talked about the bank accounts, the wallets, the number of wallet accounts has surpassed the number of bank accounts. Digital inclusion is increasing day by day. And because of that, what has happened is that, I'll just quote some examples here. The volume of e-banking transactions has increased by 400% in last 5 years. Internet banking transactions has a growth of 600% in last 5 years. And most of us are familiar with Easy Paisa and Jazz Cash. Obviously, there are a huge number of wallets, but if you focus on just these two only, in 2021, about 1 billion transactions, I repeat, 1 billion transactions amounting to 2 trillion rupees were executed through Easy Paisa. And so the numbers are phenomenal. And now we are moving towards financial, in terms of wealth management. Most of the asset management companies are working with these wallet providers to put their products on these mobile apps and wallets. And that will be a big change that I foresee which is going to happen. The other important thing that is happening is that now, as somebody mentioned earlier about the RAST. So one of the biggest challenges in the customer journey today is that when he has got a bank account in this country and he wants to invest in a mutual fund account, there's no seamless mechanism at the moment. He has to go to approach the asset management company, he has to fill up the forms, and then he has to open the account, and only then you can make the investment. Now with the permission to open digital accounts, that has become seamless, so the account can be opened, but again, the payment is a challenge. So for example, if you have a bank account in Bank Islami and you want to invest in a mutual fund of, let's say, Mizan Fund, you have to write a check at the moment. But now we are working very closely with State Bank for inclusion of mutual fund in the RAS platform, and a pilot has been started to kind of pay back to the customers or to redeem the amount through the RAS. And the next stage is going to be the time when, as an account holder in the country, even if you have a wallet account, a branchless account, or a bank account, you will be able to directly pull the money from your bank account or from wallet account to the mutual fund account. So that will be a game changer, and that will actually increase the penetration. Also, as we mentioned, that again, the bankable population is very low. So the use of wallets is actually, again, is going to be a major change. And with the use of technology, I think the biggest challenge, as Asfar also alluded to, the cost of actually the revenue per account is very low, and the cost of brick and mortar structure is very high. So, and especially, and I look at my children, so they never go to a bank. They would always prefer to do a digital transaction on the mobile app of the bank. They would never like to go to a bank, as compared to my parents, when they were alive. So obviously they would prefer to go to a bank to meet the bank manager and do the transaction. So obviously the young population, with 65% of the population is under 32 years of age. They are technology savvy. They use mobile phone. So in order to attract them towards savings and investments, we have to make sure that we use technology as an enabler. Since we have to conclude, I will just add one more point, is that one of the very important thing is that in order to ensure that this journey progresses well, I think two things are very important. First of all, we need to educate our younger population, our university students, about how to save and invest, because that is one of the failures as an economy, as a country we have, that we are not saving for the future. And in a very high interest rate environment, very high inflation, it is very, very important that you protect your capital. The other thing is important is because the regulator was also there at the events, Seema was here earlier. Uh, Normally, the regulators find it very, very difficult to catch up with the regulatory changes which are needed to enable the use of technology. And that is the mindset we are seeing in Pakistan as well. So, for example, right now we are able to open an account for a mutual fund account using the national identity card, which is certainly a very good document for identity, and especially for the people who are into the financial sector, either they are in a branchless bank, or they are in a wallet, or they are in a bank account. There should not be a further requirement for KYC or identity of the person. But now they are going to impose more restrictions on that, and they are asking for OTP, they are asking for biometric. Now these are the things which will actually slow down the journey of our progress towards digitization and wealth technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaib Saab. My next question goes to Mr. Mubashir Zubairi. Since 2020, there are a host of innovation enabling initiatives that the regulators in Pakistan have undertaken, both SBP as well as SECP, and they're likely to result in game-changing interventions. How do you see your business as a startup now, navigating through these regulatory requirements and leveraging regulatory allowances introduced for digital models?
Very interesting question. So first, we have to appreciate what the regulators have actually done in the last 2 years to enable digital onboarding, digital journey, enabling the environment in terms of customer user-facing products. So I think first is obviously they have made out different policies on digital onboarding, ease of onboarding, lowered the documentation requirement, so it makes it easier to get the customers, especially the lower category customer, that is tier 1, tier 2 accounts that you can open with very minimal documentation. So that's that. But since the digital AMC framework is still being developed, we are in constant discussions with the regulator on how to make that, how to complete that in the most efficient manner, and to keeping in view all the challenges that are there. Like Asfar mentioned, retail accounts alone cannot change the game. You need to also have the high ticket accounts, the larger ticket accounts, and different clients. So for that, there is additional requirement of account opening. So we need to work around these areas. But to begin, Mahana Wealth is focusing on the tier 1, tier 2 accounts. But then there's a lot of discussion on multiple stakeholders that are involved. It's not just the regulators. So there's banks, asset management companies, there's CDC, there's NCCPL, all of them are working in different domains. There's not much data sharing that is already being done. There are initiatives, but that are not fully adopted, like a shared KYC is being done, and so on. So I think to build the ecosystem, to actually gain traction in terms of the wealth tech, there's a lot of partnerships, collaborations need to be undertaken. All stakeholders need to jointly work on, making the seamless journey, like involve payment providers to make that journey seamless. Yeah.
Thank you, Mubashir. My next question to Mr. Asfar Naseem is, what are the areas and dimensions to the wealth tech businesses that need further enablement from the industry, regulators, as well as the government?
So, like Mubashir mentioned, regulator has come a long way. There have been several initiatives that have happened over the last few years with regards to enablement and reducing the documentation requirement for small sized investors. And there is an ongoing sandbox that SECP has. And based on the learning, several new regulatory frameworks have also come out. A digital AMC is an example. I think what needs to be done here is, the regulator, maybe, I don't know how best to put it, but, empathize with the unit economics that we face. So while making the regulation, we should have in mind that the customer that is going to be onboarded will give us a revenue of 3,000 to 5,000 or 6,000 rupees a year. And that is how the compliance should be. So, if for verification from Nadra, if I remember correctly, we pay 120 rupees per customer. So we acquire a customer and Nadra makes 120 rupees on our own data. So that's a little harsh, I believe. So that needs to happen, and the right context in which this enablement or a comparative analysis needs to be done is not digital AMCs or online account opening versus the regulatory requirement for let's say brick and mortar stuff. When someone invests in a mutual fund or stock market, they're not coming to us for buying a mutual fund or buying a stock. They're basically looking for a product that can secure their financial future. Now, insurance does that, stocks do the same thing, mutual fund do that, but real estate and gold also does the same thing. And if you look at the breakup of wealth in Pakistan, a disproportionately large share of it is parked in real estate and in gold, which has no regulation whatsoever. So it's outside the ambit of SECP or SBP. It's understandable, but that's a big challenge that we face. A customer can walk into a marketing, let's say star marketing, or let's not name anyone, and pay the entire money in cash and buy a plot of 4 million, 5 million, or pay down payment worth $1 million without having to have financial instrument and get away with it. But virtually no transaction can happen with a mutual fund or asset management company or a brokerage house on cash basis. So there is a great divide in terms of the regulatory compliance that the formal financial saving sector does and what the commodity or real estate or gold or the jewelry segment does, and that should be taken into account. With regards to the industry, I think, with regards to banks, open banking needs to be implemented at a much rapid pace. For brokerage houses, AMCs, and insurance, their technology infrastructure needs to be such that fintechs and startups can plug into them and start distributing their service without having the need to do the entire process manually. With regards to the government, I think government has a key role to play in bridging the divide between the kind of documentation that the formal financial sector does and the kind of documentation that is there in real estate and gold. These are unproductive segments that don't contribute positively to our economy, but have been doing a phenomenal job in protecting the purchasing power and for the investors. But at the same time, it is also a parking place for a lot of illegitimate wealth. So this context needs to be there, and some steps need to be taken both by the regulators and the government. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sham, Ahmed, my last question to you, sir, is how can we as professional accountants ensure that we remain up to date with what's happening and be as adaptable to the changes that the environment throws across to us?
Regarding professional accountant, fintech is actually a financial transactions. So people need trust. As a professional accountant, they can provide assurance through audits and some reports on that. So they can play a role in the shape of assurance. They can help, like in any regulatory body, there is an accountant, because every transaction of the business have a financial impact, and for the financial impact, we need an accountant to manage the financial impact. So for regulations, like in Pakistan, there's no regulation. There are some small guidelines are there. So professional accountant can play a role to develop regulations according to the Pakistan market, because we have a lot of regulations, but they are for their market. not for Pakistani market. And if we implement same as they, then it will not support to our users. Further that the professional accountant, because the startup companies, they have ideas, but they have not such ideas regarding the business operations and financial management and financial planning. So financial accountant can also, professional accountant can also play a role for financial modeling, financial planning, transactions, how to handle the transactions, how to integrate our fintech technologies with our general accounts, how to adopt the fintech technologies within the organization. Like in Pakistan right now, many companies adopt fintech for collections like Quick Pay and PayPro, and the collection system is such that people pay and it is directly hit the general accounting transactions. So for collections, no need for accountant and salesperson, just on online person pay and it will record it in the accounts. And like in insurance companies, they are right now when now we are developing one insurance product. So in Pakistan, there is no fintech, or even though there's no system-based issuance of insurance policies and claim settlement. Most of the companies doing manually for issuance of insurance policies and claim settlement. Now they are start working, and we are forcing them to establish a system for handling that thing, and the fintech is required to handle this transaction. Like wealth management, lot of opportunities there, because people don't know how to invest and they don't know what are the opportunities available for investment. That's why they invest in gold and properties. Lot of companies, fintech companies, are working on that, and with the collaboration of professional accountant, like CDC launched IMLAC for investments, and one of our investment lounge. This is a very good product for investment in mutual funds. One window solution for investment in mutual funds. Either invest in capital market, or either you want to invest in money market or fixed income funds. So all the figures are available, all the incomes are available, and through the fintech technology, we can provide a robotic or by using the AI technology, we can plan the investment. We can develop an investment plan for the users, how they want by putting the data, how much they want return, how much they want to take a risk. And furthermore, professional accountant can also help to identify the risk associated with the fintech product, and how to manage or how to mitigate this risk related to fintech. So a lot of things in which for professional accountant during the start of the business, during the operation of the business, and in the reporting and in the regulations, professional accountant can play a vital role. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Just to quickly recap the points that were discussed today, areas that we need to rethink and reconsider for a thriving digital and fintech ecosystem: open banking, shared KYC, data protection, opening up platforms for better ease of integration, and of course, work enablement to ensure the unit economics don't remain disturbed. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, audience, for their patience and for us being bearing
What
with us.
an
to stay between
absolute
lunch.
insightful discussion. Thank you so much to our moderator and the panelists. I would now like to request Mr. Joseph Ovlabi, Mr. Global President of ACCA, Mr. Asad Hamid Khan, ACCA Pakistan Head, and Temur Behram, Business Development Head, to come on the stage and deliver the mementos to our moderator and the speakers. Thank you. Please, a round of applause for an insightful discussion. Miss Nasha, can you please receive your memento? A round of applause. I understand it's lunchtime. We all are hungry, but please bear with us for a few more minutes. Mohammed Shoaib, Al Mizan Investment Management. A round of applause. Mr. Mubashir Zaidi. A round of applause. Come on, just bear with us for a few more minutes. Mr. Asfar Naseem, CEO Alpha Capital. And lastly, Mr. Shaham Ahmed, Honorary Secretary, ICMA. A round of applause for him. Sadly, Ms. Noreen Hayat has left us before receiving her memento, and as well as Adnan Masood. We hope their mementos reach to them. Moving on, I would want to invite Mr. Taimur Behram Khan, Head of Business Development South, ACCA, to deliver the closing address. A round of applause for him.
Thank you very much, and apologies. I will not take much time. We have not managed time very well. Just wanted to thank our sponsors. I would like to thank our co-organizers, Seed Venture, strategic partners, Bank Islami and Coca-Cola, platinum sponsors, Scans, TMUC, UBank, gold partners, ND, MRF, NCCPL, OBOX, Accounting Pack, Telenor Group, TSA, and supporting partners, SERP, CFA Society Pakistan, CPPA, ICMA International, KP Board of Investment and Trade, KP National Incubation Center, PASHA, PBC, PBIT, PSX, PBIT, STZA, and Universal Service Fund, the Central Media, and our knowledge partners, KPMG and Nutshell. Thank you very much. Lunch is served. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for joining us today, for sharing your insights, for providing so much value by your presence and making this event a success. We invite you to take part in contributing to the foundations ACCA has been putting to the